I'm Melody Carlisle.
And I'm Sabrina Bradley.
And this is Heaving Bosoms. This is the podcast where best friends recap romance novels and other kissing media that makes us swoon, snark, and refills our cups.
Whether you've read the book or are coming in blind, we'll lay bare every delicious scene and revel in the tropes and subgenres that make romance amazing.
All right, listener, strap in and strap on. Headphones are highly recommended. I'm sorry, Sabrina. I think what you mean is violence.
Violence.
Oh, yeah. That was a good nickname.
It really was a good nickname. Okay, I don't know if you know this, listener, but the Overdue men are here to hang out with us and celebrate our 300th episode.
Whoa! That's so many episodes.
Oh my God.
I mean, we've done more than that, but 300 is still pretty good. And you should feel proud.
No, I know.
You should feel proud about it.
Thank you. Actually, one of the reasons I reached out to y'all is because you're at like 600. Mm-hmm. So I thought,
aren't we?
We are. We super are.
Woof.
Yeah, you for sure are. So you're like the extra pros.
Mm-hmm. We're something.
If you say so.
How does it feel?
It feels like it definitely feels like there's diminishing returns. Like, were we better at 300 than we were at episode 1? Absolutely we were. Are we better at 600 than we were at 300? Maybe, maybe
I
we've
blame
held
that,
level.
Andrew.
Maybe.
I blame that on the podcast landscape changing. Big podcasts came in.
It's true.
We used to be the scrappy boys reading our books in basements, and now, literally that's how I was recording the first few episodes of the show in a basement.
I hear that.
In my first apartment that I lived in. It was cool.
Yeah.
I started in my basement too.
Hey, it's a great place to make a podcast.
It really is, yeah.
Listener, don't make another podcast. There's too many.
Oh my gosh. Okay. We're talking about Fourth Wing.
By
Rebecca Yarros. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how we're not going to make it a 6-hour podcast, but we're going to try. Actually, because Sabrina and I strategized, we are going to do everything we can here, okay, in a reasonable amount of time. And then inevitably, she and I are going to sit down and talk about everything
get on
couldn't
mic
talk about and Patreon.
Scream at each other.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Now, Mel, you had tossed this book literally at us. You threw these books at us.
Mm-hmm. I did.
Why? I think she has a new book coming out or having just come out by the time this will have dropped.
It will be coming out in like a month.
Yeah, November is when the second book in the series comes out. The first one came out in May. So like a lot of like romance and genre authors, she just cranks these bad boys out.
Which is incredible because these are like 600-page books.
They're so long. I mean, it is. I do find it easier to write long than to write tight.
That's fair.
To her credit, I will say I didn't find this like... There are authors that work that fast where I'm like, oh, you needed an extra pass. I didn't quite, at least on like the sentence by sentence level and stuff like that, I did not feel like that here. And I mostly enjoyed like what was going on in the book. So like,
Yeah. So I chose this for a multitude of reasons.
Okay.
One of them is that we've never done a romantasy with you, which I felt was lacking in our crossover repertoire. And then the second reason is that it was all over romance, Bookstagram, and TikTok. And like, I knew there was no way I was going to have time to read this book unless I scheduled it officially for podcast.
Right.
So that was one of the reasons. And because our 300th episode date was so close to the second book coming out, I felt comfortable that I could read the first one now and not die before the second one came out. Like, I couldn't have read this in May and survived.
Although, like, I'll have the two of you know, I've already been mad at Melody about this because I was planning on reading this book like November 3rd because the book comes out November 6th. And then she goes, hey, guess what? We're reading that with Overdue for the 300th episode. And I was like, fuck you. Okay, I guess.
Now you'll have a record that you can go back to and listen to and be like, okay, that's what I thought about this book.
It's true.
I can prep myself again.
So we're going to do the rest of our thoughts for Patreon, and then we're also going to be doing Iron Flame Book 2 on Patreon.
Oh, nice.
We'll recap it there. And I'm very excited about it.
Now, I think when you first brought this book up to us, I think you used the word duology.
Might have.
Which is, there are going to be 5 books in this bad boy.
It is a planned, pentology, right?
I'm sorry. Is it pentacular?
Yeah.
She gave an interview, I don't know if that was the today.com interview or somewhere else.
The Today one's the one I read.
Yeah. It is fully plotted for 5 books, she says.
Ma'am.
Melody.
Lady's got a lot to say.
How fucking dare you?
What have I done? No, this is bullshit. Because this is Empyrean. It says Empyrean book 1 of 2.
I mean,
well,
I'm looking at it right now. I mean, I
maybe-
believe
maybe-
so.
Empyrean?
For reference, y'all, I almost
Book 2 of
exclusively
2,
read
the Empyrean.
standalones. I don't read a whole, like, one couple, multiple books is not like my go-to. She just recently conned me into a 4-book, one couple series. And then this one, I was like, okay, I can handle it. The second book comes out. It's all going to be tied up. It's going to be beautiful. I'm only going to have to wait like a month.
Yeah.
It'll be great.
I mean,
This says
five
book
books-
2 of 2. These assholes.
Book 2 of 2 so far, maybe.
So
is
far
what it means.
is probably
I don't know.
right. Yeah.
But I mean, you might luck out and like maybe the 5th one is just like the first one from his perspective, and you
That
can
would
skip
not
it.
be a luck out.
No.
Inevitably, I always
Like-
hate those. I
No,
don't know why.
That's what I'm saying is you don't have to read it. It can just, you can just skip
fair.
that one.
I will read
That's
it,
fair.
though.
I mean, yeah, I will. That's the problem. I will.
So this is her 15th book. Had either of you, I know Andrew and I had not
Never
read
even
her
heard of
before.
her
No,
name.
me neither.
Okay.
This is my first Rebecca
I
Yarros.
do not know this woman. Yeah, okay.
And I think a lot of her backlog is contemporary, right, Craig?
Very contemporary. She had
A
a
lot
book
of
out
it is,
in
yeah.
July 2023 called In the Likely Event that is about 2 people who go, their plane goes down in the Missouri River and then, they're bound for life and they, meet up back again in Afghanistan because he goes into the military and she goes into politics. Love,
But the story she tells about writing this is, I grew up reading a ton of fantasy. This is a Today Show interview. I knew my publisher was looking for romantasy in that new adult line.
That's what I was just about to say.
I love new adult. I think it's such an unexplored genre. This is, every time Craig and I come up against new adult, it almost always seems to be like a publisher identifying a market need and
it always is. No, and that's
filling
what I
it
was.
rather,
I was just about to say. I bet she was writing to trend.
Yeah,
And that's
it
why
sounds
she
like,
took this hard right turn.
Yeah,
left
based
turn.
on this, I knew my publisher was looking for is the key phrase there. I think this is why this book exists. But she does. Craig and I were talking about this off mic. I think how every fantasy book, like literally every single one, has the scene where they sit around and like smoke pipes in the living room and talk about just exposition for 2 chapters.
Yeah.
Because they built a world and it has politics and culture and history, and damned if we are not going to have to read about it. But the thing that she did in this book that identified that problem and like took it out like pretty intelligently, I thought, was like she just made the main character recite facts to herself when she was under duress.
Yeah, she made her a
I love
Trivial
it.
Pursuit champ.
Yes. So every time she's stressed, she's just like reading you a Wikipedia article of like what dragon colors mean. And I actually kind of dug it a lot. I thought it was smart.
so cool. It was so neat.
It was a really fun device.
Or like, even if it wasn't that, it was in class.
Right.
So she is a military brat, is what she says. She's the child of 2 service people in the U.S. military. She has been married. Her husband has served in the U.S. military for 20 years or something. She got married when she was like 21 to this guy who has served in Iraq and Afghanistan. I think he went on like 4 or 5 tours or something like that. They have a whole bunch of kids. But she talks about how like the children of military parents has factored in this book. It's factored into a whole bunch of her books. Like she has a lot of, I think like there's like a whole series that are like way more specifically focused on service members and stuff like that. But the fact that this is at a war college, she said an editor nudged her to keep this from being a book just in an army to being at the war college. So we'll talk about the whole like magical school tropiness of it, I think, a lot.
Yeah.
So her first book was written during his third deployment. She'd been reading a lot of romance books and just decided to start writing. It got published. That was Full Measures during his fourth deployment. They're retired now, or he's retired from that life now, and they live in Colorado with all their kids. She's a Mets fan. I'm not a huge fan of that personally.
I have a couple of friends who are Mets fans, so, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it.
So would you say that came through in the novel? Like that really...
I'm trying to remember which dragon reminded me most of Mr. Met, and I think there's one, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of like lovable losers in this book, so in that way it didn't really remind me of the Met.
Yeah,
Except for the heroine.
Oh, interesting.
But is she a loser or is she?
No, I have to talk about this really quickly.
And awesome. Okay, all right.
No, here's the thing. I have to talk about this because as I was reading it, I was like, well, listen, I know I came in hot. It's not quite what I meant. Cool it. So as I was reading this, like a third of the way in, I was like, man, this is just like, it's hitting every single beat you look for and like love about a romantasy, especially like a new adult, young adult sort of romantasy, right? And I was like, including, but not limited to the fact that the heroine is like just a perfect Mary Sue. And then I was like, wait a second, I don't know if I'm just like shooting from the hip here, and I need to figure out if I really intellectually understand what that term is instead of, just like how I've soaked it in. And she's the opposite of a Mary Sue because they're supposed to be like good at everything for no reason. And Violet is quite literally bad at every single thing she has to be good at in order to literally not die in this environment. And I don't know. It's really neat, I think. And I love the way that it really kind of turns that trope on its head because it's not her coming to the rescue all the time. It's a village sort of forming around her in a place where like that is completely and utterly frowned upon. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was really cool because she's very smart and she's so brave and she has integrity out the wazoo, listener.
She
okay.
does.
But she is just super small and she subluxates everything.
She does. I learned that word this read.
Yeah, me too.
Yes.
Me too.
At the beginning, especially, I thought that the trope was going to be, she's baby, and she is baby, so that we can have many, many scenes of a hunky, muscular man rushing her to the infirmary or whatever. And it only happened a couple times, and it eventually starts to kind of subvert that as she does get like better at stuff.
Yeah.
The body stuff is interesting, like to the extent that like the self-insert part of the Mary Sue definition is right. It's around this body stuff. Yarros and Violet both have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome or EDS.
Yeah, Ehlers-Danlos. Yeah.
I was wondering if I didn't have any confirmation anywhere, but when it was being described, I was like, that definitely sounds like
because it never says in the book. It just says that her mom was sick when she was pregnant with her.
Yeah, she's brought it up in a bunch of interviews as like a representational thing she wanted to do. It's a hereditary disorder that she has and many of her kids also have, which affects like flexibility and weakens the like ligaments and connective tissues in your body. It can make your skin too stretchy. Your joints can frequently hurt or dislocate. What's the word, Craig? The
subluxate.
Subluxate. Yeah. Okay. And there are apparently 13 subtypes of EDS, and Yarros and her publisher spoke with each other a lot about making sure that everybody with all the subtypes kind of felt represented by Violet in this book. So it was kind of cool.
Yeah,
that is really cool.
My wife was not diagnosed with that, but does deal with some hypermobility stuff. So she subluxated her shoulder in high school swimming, and it's it's not just because of that, it's because stuff is stretchy. And I thought I really found the portrayal here good, and also, to your point, Mel, like plot interesting, world building interesting, character development interesting.
Yeah.
I also really like how it was rolled out, because like we learn about it. They talk about her being in pain a lot, I think, in the first few chapters. But then when she goes on that first test on the parapet and she like slips and busts her knee, and the way that she just talks about it, she's like, other people would get a bruise. I'm going to have to deal with something for a while here.
Yeah.
And then there are other interviews where Yarros also talks about like later when she's like getting accommodation, like when there are dragons in this book. We haven't talked about that. There are dragons.
Yeah. She gets the saddle.
When her dragon gets a saddle, and like her dragon's like, no, you can use this. Don't look down on it.
Yeah.
It is an accommodation, but you have like fought to get to the point where this accommodation will be useful.
Yeah.
And Yarros
it's really cool.
Yeah, she's like, I have felt that way about other things that I've like processed living with this, and plenty of people who have some sort of chronic pain or chronic illness, they think about that a lot, where it's like, I don't want to use whatever the thing is, but it's an adaptive tool.
Yeah.
And I think she does a really good job of both portraying the like internal conflict over kind of do I want to use this? Do I not? Do I want it? But how will I be perceived? While also just like it's a cool character who also, you know, is dealing with this. Yeah.
Yeah. And I really like that at like toward the end of the book, part of the character growth is that Violet realizes that what she and everyone else has perceived as her greatest weakness is actually one of her greatest strengths. Because like she's so used to blocking out pain that all of the trials that they all have to go to where everyone gets injured, she's like, this is a Tuesday for me.
Yeah.
No worries. Yeah. Here I go. I'm just going to function as normal. And like, I think even when she starts doing her, when Xaden is astonished that she can get her mental shield up so quickly, I think that's because she does that with pain. Up until that point.
Yeah.
And so
then,
he's like, he's like, okay, so just choose something else. It's the power now that you need to shut out. And she's like, oh, no worries. I've got this. Yeah. So it's really neat in a couple of different ways. I totally agree.
Yeah, it's been worked into the character, and even how like the magic system works, where a lot of it does depend on your ability to like mentally wall stuff off. Like, it's worked in pretty organically, which is cool.
Yeah.
Well, and there's also like her power is such a physical power.
Yeah.
Like it requires so much physicality. It's just very interesting that and her dragon as well. Again, spoilery town, but we're about to spoil the hell out of it anyway. So like she has the strongest dragon, but trying to channel through somebody who is regularly throughout the book by multiple characters referred to as frail and weak and fragile and all of those things.
Well, I was just going to say, too, like the other thing about like her self-image that is not related to the pain specifically.
Yeah.
But you were talking about her kind of being, you know, we unpacked that she's not a Mary Sue. But like when we meet her, she thought she was going to go into, there's like a couple different career tracks that you can go into in this forever war society.
It's true.
You could be a librarian,
a medic,
or a death prone dragon rider.
Yeah. And she spent her whole life thinking that she was going to be a scribe and work in the library. And the other thing Yarros talks about is like this series is about who gets to control history, like who has the record of history, yada, yada, yada. And what I liked is her self-image as someone who is meant for a non-warlike path is wrapped up in her grief for her father who died a few years ago, where like later in the book when she is like wrestling with the fact that she actually kills someone, she's like, my dad told me that I would not be like that.
Yeah.
And I am meant to be this other person. And I have learned through this whole process that I am not that person. I'm this other, but she's not quite the same as all the like standard Dragon Rider meatheads either. So I just appreciated that, like, that was all related, you know?
Yeah. And I think it's also really interesting because so she is the daughter of the like number 2 general in all of this society, this Perma War society. Navarre.
Yeah.
And so her mom is a general. She was a rider. They call them riding dragons, being like, you know, they're sort of like the elite fighters of the society. And then her dad was a scribe. So her older brother and her older sister knew from a very young age that they were going to be riders because in her mom's opinion, Sorengales are riders, period, the end. And while her dad was alive, especially with her physical limitations, he sort of took her to work. You know, he took her to the library. He taught her all about being a scribe. And that was like the track that I think sort of her family had decided on. And then I have theories that I don't really know what happened. I have theories, but when her dad died, her mom then was like, oh no, I'm so sorry. Is your last name Sorengale? Because you're going to be a writer and you can't do anything else. So she's got about 6 months to try and train to survive this thing where literally they're proud that 15% of these people die on the first day. They're like, yeah, good job us. We're really weeding out the wheat.
And then listen, there are a few scenarios where students can't kill each other, but there are way more scenarios where it's totally cool and even encouraged for students to kill
one scenario where you're not allowed to kill another student, and it's because they're asleep.
And even then, someone tries.
Everyone must be having 10 kids. Or how does this society perpetuate?
Right?
Well, so they said that like the classes are getting smaller and smaller, and is it because not enough people are conscripting, or is it because more people are dying?
Yeah,
because dragons are like, you're lame.
You just keep like killing 200 highly capable like 20-year-olds every year, and then suddenly you're out of 20-year-olds, and you're like, well, what happened?
Then we find out that the marked ones have no choice. They have to go into the military, and for clarification, listener, marked ones are essentially the children of rebel leaders. And we'll learn more about that later. But like, there's a forced conscription specifically into the dragon rider.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I was gonna say the other quadrants don't kill off everybody the same way the riders do.
True.
So like, you know, the healers don't have any death traps. The scribes are like, we're sitting pretty over here with our pens and our parchment. And the infantry guys only get killed on the field. So, you know.
It's heavily implied a couple times that like, if we make it any easier, then the dragons won't think we're cool enough and they won't come and bond us anymore.
Yes.
Truly.
And like,
okay. My big question though is it sounds like essentially the infantry are just like,
they're just cannon fodder.
Led to slaughter constantly.
Yes.
Like, who signs up for that?
I don't know that they do.
I don't sign up.
That's a great question.
So, unlike if you look at the fantasy map of Navarre, which I don't think we see, though they didn't talk about it. There's like a whole Ocean's 11 scene about
the
the
map.
map
in there.
There's a map of the battle college.
The college.
Oh, of the college. Okay.
I don't remember. It's Baglia, but
Basgioth.
Basgioth is how the audiobook person said it.
Basgioth.
But Navarre has been at war for 600 years against their neighbors. The book is pretty uninterested in the politics of that and why, or you know.
Well, I mean, it is that way for specific like thematic reasons that we can talk about
whimsy.
later.
Whimsy past it.
And so the dragons live in the territory of Navarre in this vale, and so they have a vested interest in working with the humans because the humans can do dragon magic or something that creates wards that protect this kingdom, and all the evil, quote unquote, Griffin rider people. At one point, I think Violet, before her eyes are open to the truth, was like, what kind of people would those furry creatures choose to ride them? You know, she has no idea who they're even fighting.
Yeah.
And so the Griffin people are on the border constantly fighting the dragon people. The wards are getting weaker.
Yeah.
You know,
the Griffin people refuse to enter like peace negotiations, allegedly. Like they are the ones who are constantly being the aggressors.
And it's all because they're not satisfied with the resources they have and they want ours for no reason at all.
Well, and like that is one thing though that I had a question like the entire book that I feel like I never adequately had answered, where like I feel like the magic was a pretty well thought out magic system. Like it made sense to me as far as a big fantasy series, right?
Sure.
But then, like, the wards, I feel, is like, this is a ward, and some people can make them better. And then it was just never discussed again. And I was like, wait,
and sometimes they go down, but
sometimes they
why
go down.
And how? And like, what?
Like, as we go through her first year at school, we start learning about these like sort of new maneuvers that the enemy are doing, where like the Griffins are going up to altitudes that are bad for Griffins in order to hit certain towns, and like they'll leave the town alone, but they're like searching for something.
What are they looking for?
And so we find out what they're looking for, but we have no idea what it is, why it is, where you get it. Yeah. If it's just like magical mist or if it's some sort of metal, you have no idea what it is. Yes.
Are they looking for the stuff?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tune in to later in this episode when you find out what we're talking about.
Right. Stay tuned. Hey, HBs. Do you love a cozy monster romance as much as I do? Well, Book 3 of Kate Pryor's Claws and Cubicles series is out now. We all loved the orc from The Office, and now she's released the vampire from General Management. Here's the description. A siren in heat, a gargoyle who keeps getting under her skin, and an inescapable work trip. Gwen doesn't want anyone to know she's a siren. She doesn't want anyone to know she's terrible at her job either. Perhaps least on her list of priorities, Gwen would also like to avoid the gargoyle who saw her vibe in the TSA check. Except the very same gargoyle is the new manager she has to work with, and he's going to the same corporate retreat she is. He reminds her too much of her past, and exactly the career-driven sort of guy she can't stand from Fortune 666 companies. When things start to heat up between them, Gwen's afraid he's going to learn all her secrets. But when he offers to help feed her siren appetite, she can't resist mixing business with pleasure. The Gargoyle from General Management by Kate Pryor is available now on Amazon and in Kindle Unlimited. Go get it immediately. So the book opens up and her older sister Mira is shouting at their mom because she's like, you're going to kill her. She's not going to be okay there. She is a teacup and that is a room full of sledgehammers. Like you cannot send her there. And the mom is just like, she's got to go. There's no choice. The great thing about her is the nicest compliment she's ever gotten from her mom is, Violet endures more pain than you'll see in an entire month, like in a day. If any of my children can survive the writer's college, it's her. And she's like,
she's not wrong.
I don't.
That's how it works.
You don't have to be nice to be correct.
No, totally. But like, she's like, I think that might be my mom's version of a compliment because her mom sucks.
Yeah, her mom
sucks.
Her mom's the worst.
Well, have we mentioned that her older brother is dead also? Her older brother, Brennan?
Yes.
Who was this amazing mender.
He was a mender.
He's a magical healer.
He was a dragon rider, right? But he gets like...
He was also a rider. He was one of the best riders that the writers have ever seen, okay?
Yeah.
The rideriest rider.
And he was killed on the very last day of this insurgence that happened between like the southernmost province and Tyrandor. I don't know. I can't remember.
Oh, look. We just keep talking. I'll do some.
Thank you so much. So yeah, Brennan was killed by the leader of that rebellion on the very last day that the United Navarians squashed that rebellion.
Yeah.
So yeah, her brother died like, 5 or 6 years ago? Because that's how long ago the actual rebellion was.
It was 5, and then at the end of first year, it was 6.
Yeah, okay.
And then her dad died like 2 years after.
Yeah.
From
Heart attack?
The grief.
Yeah.
It did not take me long to find a Reddit thread with theories about the father.
I have many theories. Big theories over here.
I was trying to confirm what happened to the dad, and I found a Reddit thread musing on what else had happened to him, which was fun.
Got big Lady Macbeth feelings over here. Anyway.
I didn't question it at all.
The Tyrish rebellion and Tyrandor are one of the
thank you,
like the province or state or whatever it was that had rebelled.
So Mira takes her back to her room and she's like, get out of your billowy scribe clothes, get into this like rider's leather. She gives her a special corset that is made of miniaturized dragon scales. So it's impenetrable by any weapons.
And it's a good thing she did.
Oh my
it's a
God.
good thing. Yeah.
She gets stabbed in that corset no less than 6 times that I can currently
So
think
many
of.
She gets
times.
hit with a sword, just
She
slapped
does.
with a sword in
She
it.
does.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
Yeah.
It's yikes. And so she takes out all of her books, including her like comfort read, which is a book of old fables that her dad introduced to her. And he would talk about, fables in big quotation marks. Thank you very
fables.
much.
Totally made up nursery stories. Yeah.
And they're more like original Grimm's fairy tales than like,
They are.
you know, a happy-go-lucky. It's like, oh yeah, here's our sweet moral of the story. And they're like, no, if you do the thing, they're going to come kill you. They're going to come steal you out of your bed.
No, it's straight up
you.
Hans Christian Andersen bullshit. Yeah.
Well, and it paints a picture of the world that has other magical creatures in it that nobody talks about. It talks about wyverns, which are not dragons. They're different and evil.
They're dragon-esque.
They're abomination dragons.
They got 2 little stubby legs.
They got bad legs.
And it talks about venin, which are like people corrupted by magic who do bad things.
Yeah, it's like the basics of the magic system is dragons and griffins basically do the same thing. They pair up with a human, and then together with the human, they enable the human to channel magic.
Right.
The human can't choose what magic they channel. Sometimes it's like bad stuff that they have to be killed for or that they kill themselves doing.
Literally
in the face.
in the middle of the quad
Yeah.
while everybody's watching in horror.
Yes. Yep. And then the venin, so goes these totally made up fables, are this third class of person who saw the dragon people and the griffin people and got jealous and were like, I'm going to channel this magic directly without a cool fantasy animal.
without a conduit.
To help shield me from it. And that made them evil.
They couldn't find a single chimera or a kraken or anything that would
Yeah.
help.
I think what unites all of them is that, like, as a human, you can take on too much magic or have too much build up in you. There is a thing where, like, you've bonded with a dragon and your dragon's, like, giving you magic, but you haven't gotten whatever cool magic power is yet. And if that goes on for too long, you just explode.
You just kind of spontaneously combust.
Yeah.
You do a big explode. Yeah.
Overripe cantaloupe.
Yeah. So the very first day, in order to get to school, there's no
Uphill.
moving vans or anything.
Yeah.
You take your pack, you climb the tallest.
For the riders specifically, of note,
Yeah.
everybody else just walks down a hallway into a door and it's fine.
Yeah. But instead, the riders have to climb this huge spiral staircase up to the tallest tower that's ever been seen. And then they have to do a bit of an Indiana Jones in the Last Crusade on one of those stone pathways that's like 18 inches wide.
It's a parapet.
Super
It's
windy.
It's a parapet.
described multiple
That's the one.
times.
Let me tell you, my friends, this is the point where I would die as a rider. I'm not even getting to this
You
point.
know
They'd be
it.
like, you're going to have to, they'd be like, you have to walk to the top of this thing. And I'd be like, there's no rail
There's
here.
no handrail.
Is it Dylan who they watch die?
Yes, they watched Dylan die.
The wind just takes Dylan away. Bye, Dylan.
Dylan and his poor fiance at home, Rebecca Yarros.
That is the moment when I went, oh, this is that kind of fantasy.
Because at first I was like, okay, is this like we got Harry, Ron, and Hermione all standing here like getting
Our
ready
plucky
to
little friends.
go through murder dragon school together? No, absolutely not.
No,
It's
this
very,
is
like-
one of those books where you're like fall in love with no one other than the female main character and the male main character.
It feels for my reference point, like it felt Hunger Gamesy. Like in terms of stuff I've read, it felt like, you know, each kid has their own thing, and these are not kids; they're like college students and older.
Craig,
Yeah.
they're new adults.
They're new
please.
adults.
Excuse me,
They're
they're
brand
new
new
adults.
ones.
Sorry, they've emerged from their
Fresh.
chrysalises and they are new adults.
Yeah.
But yeah, it felt very Hunger Gamesy, and just like people are going to get got, and you're not going to get prepared for it, and you don't quite know who to attach to, and that's part of the deal. And we're always just reading out dead people's names, like, and then we're moving on.
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
It's also very
fucked up.
Hunger Gamesy in a failed love triangle.
Yeah.
I felt like Hunger Games tried to set up a love triangle.
Dane has big bad PETA energy.
Oh, Dane has big bad Gale energy.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
Because he's the guy who it can't possibly be, and he also like kind of sucks.
Yeah, he's probably
Yes,
Gale.
and he's like a rule follower, and he has to like do the right thing, even when it's totally the wrong thing.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. No, you're right.
I don't care who he is. I just know that he's an asshole.
Oh, he's an asshole.
He sucks.
Absolutely.
He's
a you know what, Sabrina? He's a nice guy.
Oh,
That's what
he's a nice guy.
He's a nice guy.
I have to log off.
He is. Well, and it's one of those things where you first meet him and like it's like talking about how like attractive and all of these, and you're like, Like the minute we met him, I was like, that's not it.
She was trying to convince me too much. She tried really hard.
Of what a great, nice guy he was.
At one point, someone says, he's hot. He has that whole boy next door who can still kick your ass vibe going for him. I don't know what that vibe is, and I don't like it.
Nope. I've got no idea.
That's the kid that you move in next door to, and they go outside, and you're like peering through your curtain, like, please don't come on my property. I don't want to have to deal with you.
Yeah, like the very first scene with them, like I was fine with it, where in much the same way that like Mira was like, you and I both know that this isn't the life you were destined for. What can we try and do about it?
Right.
But by the time he's doing that for like the 17th time and she's already like bested a whole bunch of obstacles, it's like, wait, maybe are you bad?
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, like stop being such a dick.
When he was trying to do it after a dragon chose her?
Yeah, that sucks.
More than once. Dragons
chose her. And he's like, come on, we
incredible.
can still take you to the scribes. And I'm like, and what? Terran's gonna freaking blow that wall out and burn the whole bitch to the ground if you try and take his girl. Like,
it's true.
What?
It's true.
For Dane, I don't know if it tracks to the beginning of the book. There is a point in the book that we find out later where Dane has information that the audience doesn't have. Like Dane is like in on stuff that we find out through other means.
Yeah.
And so I do wonder at various points in the book, and I don't think he should be doing this, but like where Dean's motivations with her come out of
when they switch,
having other information about what is going on. His dad is one of like the colonels or I don't know what the ranks are, but command.
Some fancy military man.
He's like the general's right-hand dude.
Yeah.
And that's why they were childhood friends.
Dane has such massive incel energy that I think as soon as it became clear that Violet and Xaden were like seriously interested in each other, he's like, well, she won't sleep with me. I will burn her family to the ground.
I'll miss you, Violet, he says.
They're childhood friends, we should say. That's why she gives him the time of day.
Yeah,
right?
They were childhood friends.
Oh my God. So we're going all out of order. I think the only way to do this book is going to be going completely out of order.
No, I will keep us mostly on track, kind of.
Yeah, I think it's good to stay like mostly on track, but then describe the context of the situation.
Miscellaneous things.
Right.
But like from the get-go, I don't care if you're my childhood best friend. And even before all of the powers come into play, don't touch my face. But thank you.
Don't touch my face.
Like before you have a signet, before any of that's a thing, don't touch my face.
Just generally don't touch my face.
Are we dating? Like, have I given you explicit permission that you can touch my face,
then,
ear, neck,
I don't want you to just like randomly throughout the day be like, hey,
yeah, that's fair.
Touching your face. No, sir.
It is
You're
wild
totally
how like
right.
a hug, like the hugs between them feel okay because it's like she's like seeking comfort from a known entity in this like scary environment. But you're right. A face touch is an escalation that should send you to dragon prison. Like
no.
Dragon prison.
No.
That's right. No, you're totally right. So as they're on their way up, there's 2/3 people. You already heard about Dylan. He doesn't last long. There's 2 other people that we meet on the way up. That is Rhiannon, who ends up being BFF for life. And then in back of her is a capital V villain called Jack. And he's the worst. He's just a bully from the start to the finish. And at the very top, Violet notices that it has just begun raining. And one of the things that Mira did for her was make her change her boots into like rider's boots that have really, really good traction on them.
Like rubber on them.
Yeah. And so she looks at Rhiannon's boots. And this is one of the great things about Violet. And I think this was so smart because she just met Rhiannon, but she's like got a good feeling about her. And she realizes that she's in really slippery boots. And so she's like, switch one of your boots with me, and then we'll both have a better chance of you'll have a better chance of getting over in the rain. And so complete stranger, Rhiannon's like, okay, I guess so. They switch boots, and they both end up making it over.
Yeah, and then Mira has told her two things. The first thing, you're not here to make friends. The second thing, stay away from that Zayden Ryerson.
Yes.
And it's like the Rhiannon episode, I think, is good because it immediately puts you in the mind of like, oh, maybe she will succeed in Dragon Murder School by taking an unconventional path, which is what she ends up doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the stay away from that Zayden Ryerson thing is clearly there to set up the enemies to lovers.
It doesn't last long because when she gets to the top, the guy who's standing next to the roll call person realizes her last name. And she realizes his last name. And she's like, oh, fuck. Like, I was supposed to stay away from him. I was supposed to stay really under the radar. And just like minute one, here he is. They glare at each other real hard. And he notices that her boots are different. And he's like he's got his arms crossed over his giant pectoral muscles. Okay, listener? I think like nothing else happens.
To be clear. Zayden is a stone cold capital H hottie, listener.
Yeah,
he's a hottie.
He's a hot boy.
And she identifies him as a sexy man immediately.
Right away.
Before she finds out his name. And she says, are you going to kill me? And he says, why would I do that when I can just let the rain do it?
Yeah, their backstory is that his dad was one of the lead rebels.
Or the lead guy. Like he was main guy. Yeah.
And so his dad killed her brother, Brennan, and then her mom executed his dad.
Yeah.
Well, because everyone who was in this rebellion.
I just had a realization. I'm so sorry.
Sabrina's like at the back of the book going, wait.
No, she's a Sherlock Holmes.
Well, everybody who was in this rebellion, they were all executed in front of their kids. And then their kids were forcibly conscripted into Dragon Murder
and tattooed.
And magically tattooed
dragon fire.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Zayden is the oldest of the conscriptees. He's a third year in this 3-year degree program. You get an MBA, you're a master of badassery.
Yeah.
And
that's right.
Right? And so he is the first of the dragon riders that is from this conscripted rebel class.
Right. And they're very looked down upon.
Yeah. And he's personally responsible for all 170 of them or whatever. And so there's this open question of are they just kind of going through dragon school to get powerful and then they're going to do something bad? And that is the thing in Violet's, the back of her mind is that he wants to kill her personally and that everyone else is rebels bad though?
That's also
and
the first
him hot though?
In retrospect, it's the first sign that you get that the people who are running Navarre are stupid and maybe not all they're made out to be is if you wanted these people to assimilate, maybe you wouldn't have murdered all their parents in front of them and then branded them so that they would be exiles forever.
Yeah, and if you did want to do it that way, why didn't you conscript them into the infantry?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Die. Good question.
I mean, I think it was addressed because Zayden has he has 107 scars on his back or whatever, one for each one of the conscripted kids. And there was some kind of treaty, part of the treaty that ended this rebellion was the kids will be able to go into dragon school to either die or redeem themselves.
Well, and originally the leaders wanted to kill all of the kids as well.
Yes. Yeah.
And Zayden said, I will take the personal responsibility for all of them. Just let us be conscripted into dragon school.
Yeah.
That's a bold thing to do though. Cause there's gonna be one dumb little dummy in that group of kids.
I know.
There's gonna be one kid that does some stupid shit.
It's true. It's true. That's a lot of people to be responsible for.
I'm just thinking of if I just took a random 107 people that I know in my life, and I had to say that if one of them does some dumb stuff. No, don't worry. Some of these marked ones are 6 years old. They marked babies.
Yeah.
What?
Oh, that's right.
Babies.
But the youngest is a baby. Yeah.
I'm just thinking of that's worse statistics than dragon school.
You just gotta hope that the dumb ones get killed by the parapet or by not manifesting their magic soon enough, or by
flamed
another
out.
student killing them during gym class, or you just gotta hope that that something else gets them. Yeah.
The other thing we need to tell listener about Violet is that Zayden Ryerson definitely wants to kill her. Period. The end. all of the conscripted kids, the marked ones in that school, will want to take vengeance on her for their parents and kill her, period, the end.
Yeah,
but then also, everybody else is going to want to kill her because she's a Sorengale and also considered to be like weak because of her physical situation. And so they're going to want to kill her too. Just everybody wants to murder Violet on day one, including Jack, who nearly pushes her out onto the parapet.
What is Jack's damage from Git?
Yeah, Jack's a psychopath.
What is his deal? By the end of 5 books, like, we're definitely going to see this guy resurrected as some kind of like dreadlord guy, right? Like,
he doesn't look. Spoiler: he does not make it through this book, and when he gets got, it's pretty cool. And Xaden gives a speech about how cool it is to kill bullies. It's like wild. Xaden's like, listen, the world is better without him. You did a great job. That guy sucked.
When I got to Dragon Murder School, I found the biggest bully and I walked up to him and I immolated him with a lightning bolt, and then nobody ever bothered me ever again.
So wild.
Well, okay, but I will say that so she's going across this parapet, right? And this is when it's raining. She's slipping. She's given us all of the exposition facts about the world because she's nervous. And then she notices that Jack does just murder a kid behind her.
He does.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "You're next, Sorengale." And he starts like running over to her. So she has to book it the rest of the way across the parapet. She finally makes it, jumps onto the end, and then manages to grab a dagger and turn around. And she's got him dagger to the balls before he is on the sacred ground where you cannot hurt another cadet.
For now.
But it's mostly based on the honor system.
Yeah,
there are lots of exceptions. Yeah.
Yes. There's every exception in the book. So one of the older kids is like, "You can kill him right now and it won't be a problem. So, make your choice." And she chooses not to because Violet doesn't want to kill anyone. And it becomes kind of a problem for her.
Yeah.
So anyway, we meet Dane. Dane takes her up and like helps her bind her knee or whatever. He's supposed to be the guy that she like relies on and goes to.
As we've said, he's very overprotective.
Yeah.
Holding her back.
And she thinks he's
and
kind of
manipulative.
She is. She kind of has been waiting her whole life to find out if they were ever going to bang.
Yeah. Yeah. You're
also,
right.
like, she's always like, she's been like borderline in love with him since she was like 14 years old.
Yeah.
So she's like, this is it. This is my chance. We're going to be riders together if we all survive through year 3.
If I can stay alive. Yeah. So then, like, I love this because chapter 3 opens and the first line is, "If Jack Barlow wants to kill me, he needs to get in line." It's the best. When they get into their,
Squad.
formation and they get a squad. Yeah. She sees Xaden Ryerson, who is a wing leader against all odds, because that's just how powerful and badass and cool and awesome Xaden Ryerson is.
Yeah.
Everyone.
They're not wrong.
And they like see a dragon for the first time. She sees Xaden's dragon, Sigale, and she's very, very scary. That dragon is.
She's blue, right? She's a blue dragon.
She's blue.
Yeah.
I forget what kind of tail she has, but she's blue.
Everybody, all the dragons have colors and tails.
Pretty sure it's a dagger tail.
Okay.
But also, I imagined her as like a matte blue dragon
Oh,
instead of a shiny blue dragon.
You like an eggshell kind of finish on your
like,
dragon.
Yeah, like one of those very unsettling cars, but it looks real cool on a dragon.
We saw a truck yesterday.
Yeah.
That was not. It was one tiny step up from the matte, and we were like, okay, that's kind of cool. But the ones that are like pure matte,
they're weird.
Is your car not finished? Did you not finish getting the car made?
They didn't put the top coat on there.
Those cars scare me. It's like they eat light.
They do. They do.
They are like Xaden.
They
have shadow powers.
They have shadow powers. Oh my God. Okay.
Also, I do have to say, because you brought up the shadow powers. Of fucking course.
He's going
to have a power. He's got shadow powers. This big, angsty, bad boy, of course,
can just do anything.
To be clear, I'm not mad about it.
I'm not mad about it.
Even though shadow power basically lets you do anything, which is kind of a cop out. But anyway,
it does.
Shadows can like become tangible and like grab people.
That was weird for me. And this was when I first thought like, oh, she's definitely writing to trend, because one of the very beloved, much wanted to see in Sexy Times characters of Sarah J. Maas's ACOTAR series.
Is that the Court of Rose and Thorns?
That's the one. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And his name is Azriel, and they call it a shadow singer, and I refuse to say that. I will only call him a shadow slinger. But
Sure.
his shadow power makes a little bit more sense, because he can just sneak into rooms and find out information and stuff. Zayden can make lassos with his shadow power.
So okay, there's a character in the anime Naruto named Shikamaru who has a power like this, where Andrew's so frustrated that I Naruto.
You're so embarrassing. I can't take you anywhere without you talking about Naruto.
I was waiting for this book to be like this, because it sounds like maybe the ACOTAR stuff is similar, or maybe I don't know. But it's like he can manipulate, I think, his shadow, and he can extend it, and he can send it, and it can grab a person, but it has to be like a continuous shadow that he can extend. Ooh. And so if he has a very small shadow, because the sun is very high, he can only send it so far. And then he can be, it's like, so what was kind of frustrating about this, to your point, Andrew, is that it's just kind of I don't know, there's shadows everywhere.
As long as anything in his vicinity is casting a shadow, he can create a tangible force field
he can do it in the dark
made out of shadows.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah.
Well, what's the dark?
Yeah.
It's just one big shadow, isn't it?
It's just one big. You're right. I'm sorry. You're right. God.
Well, but even in fully lit middle of noontime, he's I'm gonna make a dome of dark, and it's
yeah. I'm going to darken this whole place.
I'm going to go in there and I'm going to listen to Dashboard Confessional, and I don't want anybody to interrupt me.
Oh my God. It's a good thing he didn't have this when he was an emo little 13-year-old. Yeah. Which is too much power.
Rebecca Yarros made the Captain Marvel of Shadow Slingers. That's what she did. Okay. So we start going through her classes. One of them is Battle
One thing.
Yeah, tell me.
To be clear, this is when we really learn, when they see all these dragons for the first time and they're up, whatever, they've all made it past the parapet. This is when we learn that dragons don't give a fuck.
No,
because humans.
One dude got scared and they were just all right, smoke them, boys, and just dead.
Yeah, he starts running and Segale incinerates him.
And she's not the only one. There's so many times where the dragons are just even after the dragons have chosen a person, another dragon is you're humans, annoying.
Yeah.
And just blows them off.
That's so wild to me for recruitment. Surely you could put them maybe slightly lower down in your military from Dragon Rider, because they're still probably pretty good. Yeah, right.
It'd probably be good to have some shock troops who are really good at fighting, and smart and understand battle strategy, and don't need to get just murked by a dragon who found them annoying.
Nah, they're more useful as a pile of ash. It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so the way that the first school year is laid out, there's specific challenges that they go through that are kind of like exams, right? And so it's instead of having reading days, you have do the Ninja Warrior course.
Yes.
And then there's, then there, instead of midterms, it's does a dragon like you, or does a dragon kill you? You know, it is weird that they get the dragons midway through their first year. Seems a little fast to me.
Well,
I feel it makes sense for it to happen that fast, because
killed
you
so
may as
fast.
well
I don't think
find out.
there'd be many left if you waited much longer.
Yeah.
It's true. You got to give the dragons the opportunity to smoke them before they get smoked by something else. So one of the first challenges that she has to go through is sparring. And everybody's you're the tiniest, you're not strong, you're very easy to break, and we're all worried about you.
For good reason.
Yeah. I mean, yes.
Imogen rips her arm off of her body in her first spar.
Yeah. During the assessment, when they're not supposed to do any damage at all, Imogen breaks her bones.
Imogen does that, but it's fine, because down the aisle, Jack, douchebag Barlow,
he just kills a guy.
Yeah.
Murderate somebody.
This is my favorite thing about Murder Dragon School is on your, they print out the little piece of paper that has your schedule on it, and it's history, a battle class, MMA where your classmates can kill you with knives.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and Imogen actually, okay, so when she gets to sparring the first day during the assessment, Imogen actually also tries to stab her in the gut, except she gets saved by her corset. And then she gets her shoulder pulled out of the socket and her arm broken. And Dane takes her to the infirmary. And his whole thing is, don't fix her very well, because if we leave her broken, then she won't be a rider anymore. We can just take her to the scribe unit and it'll be great. And she's explained to him no less than 2 or 3 times that, like, if she tries to sneak into the scribe school, her mom will just pull her out by her hair and put her back into rider school. So it's not even realistic what he's trying to do. So it's not realistic, and it's incredibly insulting and demeaning all the time. And he does it constantly.
Well, and he's not listening to her at all. He does not listen to her one time this entire book. She's like, absolutely no. Not. And he's like, I heard yes.
Yeah. At first it's like, oh, my mom would find me and put me back in dragon school anyway. So what's the point? And then before very long, it becomes, maybe I can do this. Maybe I've survived things people said I shouldn't be able to survive. I want to be here and like prove this to myself.
Yeah.
And he's having the same reaction to her the entire time. Like, you don't seem like you mean it. Let's get you back in the library. How about?
And it's just confidence shattering every time. So on her bed, she finds a journal that her brother wrote for her sister before she went into rider school. And it's basically like a life hack to survive dragon rider school. One of the things she finds out is that they schedule the sparring matches in advance. And if you sneak into a certain room, you can figure out who you're going to be sparring with the next day. So she's like, I brought my poison book for a reason, y'all. I'm going to find out who I'm fighting next day. And then I'm going to poison the shit out of them so that they're sick and I will beat them with my knives. And it starts working. Her very first match, she fights a guy called Oren Seafried, I think, and he doesn't want to yield.
Oren.
Yeah, fuck Oren.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't want to yield until she puts her knee into his back, and he just starts vomiting all over the mat.
So cool.
She poisoned his breakfast.
Well, and right around this time is when we start learning a little bit more about the marked ones and all that, because to get some of her stuff for poison, she sneaks out after curfew, and she goes and she climbs a tree, and she gets the stuff, and all of a sudden she sees 2 people coming in, like walking up under her tree, and then, oh my God, it's Xaden and something
Imogen.
Else, and then 20 other marked ones show up.
Well, because it's like his cousin Bodhi, his buddy Garrett. I love this band that he has. His cousin Bodhi, his buddy Garrick, Imogen, and then like a bunch of other marked ones. And I think what you're going to say, Sabrina, is that like they are not supposed to meet in groups more than 3.
And we don't know why, we don't know why until the very, very end, and then that's when we start finding that out. But
the
as of right now, it's just
is
like they're gonna be put to death if they get caught with it.
The stated reason is like, oh, the only reason more than 3 of these people get together to talk is if they were plotting further insurrection, and we don't want them to do that. That's another thing this book does with context is at the beginning of every chapter is like a quote from some in fiction like book or tome, or like just a quote from some
Brennan's
person
writings or something.
And it's usually either like giving you new information that you had no other way of knowing before, which is how I think we learn these people can't congregate in groups of more than 3 the first time, is I think it's dropped on you as like a beginning of chapter thing.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's just like re-emphasizing stuff that you've learned like earlier in the book so that you know to pay special attention to it in this chapter.
It's like an HBO last time on. That's like, it's not just the last episode. It's like stuff from 3 episodes ago, but we're going to focus on that character. Yeah. I'll
say
smart.
I really appreciated it, because there were a couple of times where I read that thing and I was like, oh, what the hell is that? And I'd have to go back like 175 pages and I'd be like, oh, okay. I'm on board. I got this.
So during that meeting, she figures out that they're only there to offer help to the first year marked students to like try and make sure they live a little bit longer than they normally would. And she's like, oh, wow, they're not doing anything wrong. They're just really, really sweet. And I wish like people from my province would help me out like this. And then one of them goes, when do we get to kill Violet Sorengale?
It's great. I love it.
And Xaden's like, she's mine to handle. Everyone will back off. She's mine to handle. And then he's like, go to bed. Goodbye. She waits for a really long time so that, you know, she can be super sneaky. And then she goes down, but suddenly she's pulled against a hard chest, everyone. And then there's a knife to her throat. And he's like, fucking Sorengale. And then they do some verbal sparring that is very hot. I'm not going to lie to you. He's like, are you going to tell on us? And she's finally like, no, I'm not. No. First she says, are you going to kill me? And he's like, I haven't decided yet. And so then she takes her knives and she throws 2 of them at him. And he's like, you missed. And then she goes, back up to that tree and see where my knives hit and then tell me that I missed. Turns out they hit like right where his ears were, like at the same latitude.
And you know that this is the first time that like Xaden's been into her from Git, we find out. But like this is the first point where, you know, he went,
Suddenly he has a competence boner now. He's got a competence and a danger boner all at the same time. So then he's like, are you going to tell about us? And she's like, no, I'm not, because you're not doing anything wrong. Like, she doesn't say this, but she's like, I find it admirable that you're trying to help out younger kids. And he's like, all right, we'll see. We'll see if you tell anyone. And then if you do, I'll have to handle you. Which Violet should know is bullshit, because if she tells, he just immediately dies.
Yeah.
Like, he's putting a lot of faith into her right now. And I feel like she doesn't acknowledge that very much.
When he says that he does owe her a favor?
Yes.
He does say that.
That's the first thing that creates some bond of like obligation between the two of them.
And then, oh my God, he says, you look so frail, but you're a violent little thing. And then he says, go to bed before your wing leader finds out you're out of bed. And she's so confused and befuddled that she's like, but you're my wing leader. And he's just gone. It's ridiculous.
Their back and forth really, like, it just made me so happy because they just held nothing back.
Is this when he coins her nickname, or is that a later encounter?
I think that's
a later
maybe
encounter.
It's a later
when he spars with her.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So she goes through all the sparring. She's knocked out like, 7 or 8 people with various poisons. And her last one is like a little too effective.
She either gets the dosage or the timing wrong.
Yes, she poisoned somebody too much.
The person can't even like fight. And they're like, oh, I guess you don't have a fight today. And he's like, and Xaden walks up and he's like, yes, you do.
I'll step in, he says. Oh my gosh.
So they
and then he just like progressively takes more and more and more knives from her and just keeps throwing her on the floor.
First of all, this fucking asshole.
And then there was like some war hornies here though, when he's like on top of her.
Sure.
And I was like, she starts getting the tingles. I was like, yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. From the jump, she's like, my sister told me not to talk to this guy, and he also led a rebellion and like killed my brother and stuff, but I'm kind of totally into it.
He gives me
and I
pants
shouldn't
feelings.
be, but I am. Yeah.
I don't know what to tell everyone. He gives me pants feelings.
Yeah.
like a style note on the book, like she's pretty comfortable with some, this feels silly to say for a fancy book, but like anachronism, right? Like this is a society that does have indoor plumbing.
Yeah.
And she does mention playground equipment at one point, but they use ink blotters and they have maybe like cross bolts were invented a little while ago.
Yeah.
They don't have computers.
For sure not.
And they don't have cars. It's pre-industrial age, right? But Violet says to herself at one point, like, trying to tell herself she's not attracted to Xaden, she's like, I am not attracted to toxic men. Yeah. Like, there is like, let's just use modern parlance and call him a toxic man. Actually, he's not. Dane is the one who's toxic.
Dane's
but
right.
She thinks he's a toxic man because she's on Twitter and she knows what a toxic man is. Like, that's
it's true. Yeah.
It's just a fun like game I had with the book where I was just like, what is this world? Like, what do they have? What do they not? And also the voice is like it's mostly pretty contemporary.
Yeah.
She does have fun when she says fertility suppressant instead of birth control at one point, which I thought was
that comes up awful late in the book, doesn't it?
Does.
Like
Yeah,
it's like 80% of the way through.
They're playing just the tip at this point. Before she's
time that they
taking the fertility
get the diddly do.
Yeah,
when
but
they
it's not
do
the first time
diddly-do.
anybody does it.
That's true.
No, it's not. It's not.
Yeah, it does
Yeah,
just
because
feel
people
like
be fucking at this college.
people be
They're
fucking
like,
at Dragon Murder School
It's
because they're
almost
like,
a
I might be dead
class.
tomorrow. I might as well fuck today.
that's literally what they say.
Yes. Seize the dick, or seize the dick, as we like to say.
Seize the D. Yeah.
Or not, as the case may be, because Rhiannon is in an on again, off again with Tara.
Ooh, with Tara.
So this is like with all the classes and things, and this is when we start learning about the dragons, and we like hear about the dragons, and we get described with scale,
like illusions of
and things
them.
like that. Yeah. And then they start talking like I just love especially in a fantasy novel where like they start explaining something and you're like, oh, I see exactly how this is coming back, because they're like, this is the black dragon that hasn't been seen in like how many years, like 100 years old. He's the strongest dragon, blah 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 blah.
And nobody's
then
even
this is when
seen
we
him,
find
and,
out the last person who rode this dragon is a mender who died because the mender expended too much energy trying to save Brennan, her brother. And I was like, ow, that's sad as shit.
Yeah, and so not only do we find out that this black dragon, this, illustrious black dragon, but we also find out that feather tails never, ever bond.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah.
It's a known fact.
Because everybody else has some badass at the end of their tail, like a sword
Scorpion.
tail,
Club
club tail. My favorite is Morningstar tail because it's so long.
Tail.
It's such a long. Why don't you just say spike tail or something? Why does it have to be?
Spiky ball tail.
Feather tails, which are just like wussy little dragons that nobody knows anything about. That never come down.
I bet the dragons kind of resent, like, I bet they have their own words for how cool their tails are.
For sure.
And they're like, these humans are like, well, name it after one of their stupid weapons. Like, come on.
I really like the idea of like Dragon School where they're naming all of the different kinds of humans. They're like, this is the extra stupid one. This is, like, you can tell because of the
got a fart human and
This is the incel
these ones
one,
really smell. So
human.
make sure you like.
This is the chatty human. Oh my God. So good. Okay. So then the next benchmark is the gauntlet. And so they start, this is the American Ninja Warrior.
This is just Mount Midoriyama from American Ninja Warrior.
This is exactly
or
it.
Ninja Warrior. Sasuke,
including the ball boys that you have to jump on and then, swing to the next one.
And the inverted ramp. It's the only thing it doesn't have actually is that kind of spider climb thing at the end. But yeah.
And also when you fall, it's not into it does
Isn't
have
the chimney that
right,
spider climb boy?
You're right.
so.
Right.
Yeah, the chimney has a spider climb, and then you have to like jump across a thing to
there's
a
the
ramp or
rolling
something.
logs. There's all the things, right?
But instead of falling into a dirty lake as you do in Ninja Warrior, you fall to your death off of a mountain because again, we can afford to just kill a lot of like mostly able-bodied, like trained
young
warrior people because they're not good enough for Dragon School.
Dragons.
Do you think the dragons care about this shit? Like the dragons are like, oh, this guy did it fast. I want that one. Like that's what everybody says. But come on.
Apparently it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter anyway because the dragons flame them anyway, just at random.
Right.
They're like, that one's kind of a dick. Like maybe they should meet the dragons first. Like before anything else happens, they just like the first gauntlet is all of the dragons lined up and you have to walk past them. And then the dragons can be like,
day one.
we're just gonna like cut them out from get.
Yeah.
There should be like a Tinder
I think one
for
of the
this.
classes You've got all these ones that are dedicated to like killing people who aren't perceived as strong enough. Fine. You should have like some interview training for your meeting with the dragons because I think like just a bunch of these kids needed a tip that was like, don't like insult dragons in front of the dragons. Like they don't like that.
Well, my favorite is when the like what you just said is we don't know anything about the feather tails and like one of the people is just like you don't know what they can do. They just can look at you and implode you on the spot.
And the guy is like, this is a piece of shit dragon. This dragon sucks.
Shitty dragon.
And it turns out that feather tails are just like dragon toddlers.
just
like
babies.
they're just little kids.
Yeah.
But they're not hatchlings.
They're not hatchlings.
That's
no.
right. So she has to
that.
practice this thing, right? And so this is the first time I think that one of her squad mates dies, and the lady dies in front of her, and it's a whole big thing.
Mm-hmm.
She can make it up every single obstacle except the last two, which are the chimney and the inverted ramp. And she can't get up the chimney simply because of her height. So they go through this long progression of practicing the gauntlet because the whole point is on the real day, and literally nothing is different from the practice to the actual day, except that you can maybe take a rope down if you need to during practice. And otherwise, you just sort of have to fling yourself off if you can't get up an obstacle. Yikes. So after this girl dies, in Navarre, the tradition is to burn all of their stuff and like bury the body. And so she has to take all the girls' belongings to the the burning. And on her way back from that, she sees that Xaden and two other marked pals are coming in like late. She's like out after curfew, which I don't know why that would be okay, but that's fine. And he notices her, and so he stops, and she's like, okay, so are you going to kill me now? And he's like, I really just haven't decided. And she's like, you know what, at this point, because Dane, this is the 5th time that he's told her she has to go to the Scribe Corps. And not only that, but he like set it up so that they can do it in secret. And all she's got to do is be like, yes, please. But she's already feeling like, I've survived so long, I think I might be a rider, actually.
Yeah.
Like, I think this might be for me. So it's not just, the impossibility of it that's keeping her from making that choice. And she looks at Xaden and she's like, I just need to know because I'm trying to make some big decisions and it would like really impact my week. All right. And so she says, like, I'm thinking about quitting, basically. And he says, I didn't take you for a quitter. And then when he figures out that it's just because she physically can't do the last 2 obstacles, he looks at her and he says, the right way isn't the only way. Figure it out. And then he leaves. So then she noodles on it all night. And the next day, as they're walking to the gauntlet, Dane is standing next to her being like, I can't lose you, Violet. I can't live with myself if anything happens
you can't
to you.
do that. You can't do this to me.
It's going to hurt my feelings if you die. Please care about my man feelings.
It just blows my mind because like this isn't even the most annoying that he gets. And at this point in the book, I'm already so sick of Dane.
I was going to light him on fire.
Yeah, I'm over it. Like this is this is definitely a Rubicon for his character where he's like, okay, you're like concerned but doing a bad job of it before, and now it's like, well, you're just kind of being unsupportive and not
douche.
like, yeah, you're not listening.
There was a health.com interview with Yarros about the Ehlers-Danlos stuff and like the representation, and she talks about Xaden, and she's like, it was exceptionally important that Violet's love interest treats her as capable and encourages her to become her best self in not holding her back and stuff. So like the fact that Xaden, even before they're in like a proper like what if we kissed state and still on paper hate each other.
Yeah.
The fact that he is like, no, you're more capable than that. You can figure it out.
Yeah.
And then we have the foil of Dane being like, what if you sucked and I just like helped you suck over there instead of getting, sucking in front of a dragon.
No, it's
like,
totally
come on,
true.
Dude.
Like when Xaden did the practice sparring with her, he was actually teaching her through the whole thing. So he's disarming her and then he's teaching her and he's like, you could hit me here and here and here. And he's doing it really quietly and also sexily and like whispering in her ear. It's fine. Yeah. And then at the very end, he looks at Dane specifically and he says, she could use a lot less protection and a lot more instruction. Yeah. Stop coddling her. She can do this. And then he fucks off. So she's like, Dane, I'm doing the gauntlet. I'm going to try. I'm going to do it or I'm going to die. Like, get in line. So she figured out that there's some stuff that she can do to aid her in, like, getting up the chimney. And I'm going to be honest with you. I could not understand the physics or logistics of the rope helping up a chimney. I didn't understand what happened.
In my brain, the way it was is you like from the outside of the chimney, you take a rope and you like loop it around the far side and then you pull it tight and you just kind of like shimmy up, like kind of using the rope as like leverage, or I don't know if that's the right word, but
I think that's.
But
maybe.
I agree with you that I needed to read a couple of times to
whimsy.
Exactly. So then, after she gets up the chimney, the last thing is that ramp, and she hasn't even had a chance to practice it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So she uses all her momentum because she's really fast. She's always been fast and pretty agile. And she runs and runs and runs, and then she grabs one of the daggers out of her vest, and when she just feels like gravity's going to take her back down, she puts that dagger into the wood, and then she uses that to like hoist herself up the final foot.
And she can literally feel herself ripping her own arm out of socket doing this. Like, just as an example of the fact, like, because later in the book, she starts getting trained on like strength training instead of just attack training, because she desperately needs it. She needs to work on the muscle mass a little bit to help keep her bones where her bones are supposed to be boning.
Yeah, there's like a fantasy thigh master machine that she uses. Again, what is the level of technology here? It's very funny.
She does say that it's all about the pulleys, you know? So
yeah, sure.
It's like Dragon Planet Fitness. It's great.
And so one of the ladies who like used to bang Dane, and the reason is because they both love rules so much. Amber,
yes.
Yeah.
Amber and
no, Amber and Xaden, I thought.
No, Dane.
Amber and Dane did, because Dane's so upset that she gets
Dane. Yeah. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So Amber comes over and she's like, you can't use outside stuff. You're disqualified. And she's another wing leader. And so Xaden's like, hey, girl, I'm in charge of this one, and I'm the one who's going to make the final decision. And so he looks at her and he's like, explain why that was okay. Justify yourself. And so she says that she didn't use foreign materials because the rope is technically part of the course for the first one. And then she uses this addendum to a rule on stuff you brought to camp.
Yeah.
And she says that this addendum makes it so that anything you bring across the parapet is considered part of your person. And so it's not a form, it's basically part of your body.
Yeah, like,
so
the daggers I brought from home.
That's
basically,
right.
So they're part of me. Yeah.
Exactly.
You cannot use the daggers that you won from other people by beating them up or poisoning them and then beating them up. But you can use the daggers that you brought from home.
How do they know
that
for
does
sure?
Bring up a question
they don't,
I have, though.
But
what happens when you're out of daggers? If you keep getting them stolen, what if you just really suck?
You're done then.
They don't really talk about
you're
that.
toast.
Murder Dragon School.
Yeah, you're probably already dead. You know, you wouldn't have made it to the gauntlet. Whimsy. Exactly, Craig.
Okay. I did think about that, because like some people just had Xaden literally has a wall of knives in his room.
Because he's so badass.
Badass.
And so she's like, I used my thing from home, and so it's part of my body, so it's okay. And Xaden looks at Amber, and he's like, she's got you, Amber.
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
And then Amber says, you think like a scribe. And Violet goes, I know, thank you. Yay, me and my big giant brain. It's great. So now we get to presentation.
Yeah, the presentation is the thing before the threshing.
It's the
which is
dragon
a real
walk.
whack name for meeting your dragon. But
America's Next Top Dragon.
But presentation is just you wander through a long corridor and the dragons just kind of look at you. And if they don't like something about the cut of your jib, they can just incinerate you.
They burn two people during presentation in their squad, right? One is Percy, the cheaty of the group who can't decide anything and just gets burned instantly. And then Luna or Luca.
Luca.
Or Pryor is his name, excuse me. Yeah.
Yeah.
We also have
Luca's
a moment
just a
where
bitch. Sorry, go
we
ahead.
also have a moment where, like, boy howdy, I can't believe that she did not pee her fucking pants, because she's walking and all of a sudden two green dragons, which are the super aggressive ones, where you're like in class, they're like, don't look them in the eye. Don't do it. Like, don't ever. And like, she straight up like what's happening? And turns around and she's just like dead staring at these green,
like
dragons.
green dragons.
And she's like, oh no.
They're doing a big snurfle on her.
Snurfle is because they can smell Mira's dragon's scales
in the corset
on her. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, she explains to them because they're also the most, they don't look them in the eye, but they're also the most reasonable, but don't look them in the eye.
That's right.
And so they just kind of let her go.
Most reasonable is not like a super high bar to clear for dragons. Like it just seems like most of them just kind of do what they want.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, are you going to stop them? Because I'm not.
No.
No.
So yeah, we so a couple people get torched. The other big like story thing that happens is we'd heard tell of some kind of like golden dragon before. I think in like battle class or something. And it turns out that the golden feathertail dragon is there as part of the Dragon Watch. And a bunch of the students, it's little teeny tiny. And several of the students decide to make fun of it, which again just seems like maybe the first thing they should have taught them in dragon school when they were teaching them like not to look them in the eyes. It's like, don't insult dragons.
I mean, Andrew, I'm so sorry. I feel like they did though. You know what I mean? Like,
I also feel like that if you have a semblance of like, what's the word I'm looking for? You want to make sure like you're not gonna fucking. Who goes, you know that thing with the teeth and the claws and the fire breathing and the spike tail? Like, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to talk shit about it.
Looks like a real wiener. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like when the wiener boys are like, let's kill this wiener dragon.
Yeah.
They purportedly.
You're skipping to the threshing, I think.
Oh, sorry.
Is that fine? Like it's cool.
That's fine.
Is there anything else we need to cover before the threshing?
No.
No, I don't think anything.
I don't think we go straight to threshing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Threshing is basically the choosing.
Yeah. It's. I
thought it was going to be dragon speed dating. Okay, but that's what the presentation was. Okay, and now they just go into like the forest, and if they come across a dragon and it feels weird in their tummy, they need to get away as soon as possible.
Yeah.
But if they come near a dragon and it feels like maybe okay, then like stand still and wait to see if the dragon maims you severely. Because if you're maimed, but then they let you get on their back, you're good to go.
Yeah.
Most dragons scar their riders. Day one.
It's great.
Oh my God. This relationship is questionable.
At best.
I'm not into toxic dragons.
That's right.
No. So the Wiener Boys, Jack Barlow, Oren, Seifert, some other dickhead. What's his name?
Tiny.
Yeah.
A group of men who Violet has beaten in some way, but has allowed to live.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Toxic
Violet
boys who have
doesn't
been
kill.
emasculated.
Yeah.
No.
They, in addition, and the other thing about the threshing is that like people just get killed in the threshing because it's like, I want that dragon. Stab. I'm going to run over and make the dragon like me. Mm-hmm. So that's a whole thing that happens. And so like there's the tension of, are people going to try to kill Violet during this whole thing?
The answer is
which
yes.
they do.
Yes.
Yeah. But the Wiener Boys roll up on the Feathertail first because they're
hunting the Feathertail.
And they're if this is actually real, I think they're just stupid and mean.
Okay.
But I think Jack the ringleader is like, well, if it does bond with someone, it's weak and will be bad for our army, so we should kill it. I think you're just a sadistic idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
No, but that's definitely how he sells it to the other two who are mildly less sadistic.
Sure.
Bigger idiots, though, that they're being
for sure
coerced into this, like, sirs.
Yeah. So Violet hears this and she's like, I can't let this stand. Like, they don't know anything about the Feathertail, but also, like, it was only like a couple of feet taller than she was. And she's like, I can't let them kill the bitty one. So she goes to try and warn that dragon to, like, get away before the Wiener Boys get there. Except that she's trying to, like, chat with the dragon from far away to, like, stay back in the trees. And they all walk into the clearing where Goldie, she's calling the dragon right now, is standing. And she notices that, like, Goldie doesn't have any claws and, like, Goldie, she doesn't know if Goldie can fly, and like her tail is feathers
or breathe fire.
Yeah.
Like
there's not a single spike on it, you know.
When obviously, like it's just a sweetie pie because she's like whispering from the forest, and she's like, "Hey, you gotta go!" And the dragon's like, "Ooh,
yeah, like
do
you want to talk to me?
Interested?
So cute.
I want to talk to you. It's adorable.
Yeah.
It's basically
Andrew,
a puppy."
You and I have been reading the Sandman series recently as we record this, and like later when we meet this dragon and like hang out with this dragon, there are parts that remind me of Delirium. Like it's just like a cool vibes based baby dragon. He's like, what if we just talked about whatever? You know, I mean, like she does like buckle down and do some cool shit, but like there are conversations where she's like, I don't know. It's like talking to a toddler. It's like
it's very toddler, because then when Violet brings up that it's just a toddler, the dragon's like, no, I'm a big boy.
Yeah, exactly.
I pull my own underwear up and everything.
Yeah.
I'm not a baby. I'm a big boy dragon.
Boy. Yeah. So when this happens, she's like, I can't let this stand. She walks into the clearing and she's like, this is wrong. Y'all can't do this. And also, not only is it wrong, it's stupid. Like, what do you think is going to happen if one of these big giant dragons finds out you killed another dragon? Why are you doing this? And Jack is like, no, I just think this is a 2-for-1 deal, because now I've got you and the little weakling that I can kill all in one shot. But then as that happens, she hears a voice from behind her. And Xaden says, I suggest you wouldn't do that. And then they're like, oh, why? And it's because Xaden and Sigale are standing on the sidelines. Here's the rub, though. They're not allowed to interfere at all.
For some reason.
No.
This is one thing that bothered me a little bit, is like the rules for when and how a person is allowed to kill another person just seems totally like
and what's the point of letting them watch
like,
if
I don't
they
know.
can't do anything?
Here, the older kids are allowed to watch but not do anything.
Yeah.
And even Xaden being there is like, well, he's kind of doing something.
And the other one I thought was stupid is like, so, okay, you get through the threshing and we'll talk through the rest of what happens. But so you've got this bond with your dragon, and we've been told that if the dragon or the human in a bonded pair dies, it's bad for the other being. Like it makes the dragon super sad, it makes the human super dead.
Yeah.
But also, like right after the bonding happens, they let all the unbonded first years like stick around. And it's like it's like at least not frowned upon to try and kill a bonded person to try and get a second bite at the apple, and like maybe their dragon will bond you instead if you kill the person who bonded.
What the fuck?
And that's really like, wouldn't the dragons be like, hey, it makes us really sad when you do that? Could you not?
I made a choice, man.
Could you not do anything to the person I bonded, like out of respect for me?
Well, it feels like the humans also just have this like gigantic idea of what the dragons want,
like
really, when it boils down to it. And then like this comes up because we'll get to it, but when Violet meets her dragon, he's like, yes, tell me more about what it is that I want.
Yeah.
Well, and then there's like a whole dragon congress. Yeah. There's like a whole dragon congress that happens, and everyone's like, this has never happened before. What? We've been with these dragons for 600 years, and they like went off and had a meeting behind closed doors. What the fuck? Like, come on. They have culture. Like elephants.
Like, if there's anything we've learned in these classes, it's that like these people don't actually know shit.
Very true.
About the dragons. They know that they know that sometimes they don't get flamed, and so therefore they get cool powers.
Yeah. And they got like their tails are different shapes.
Okay, so they're standing there, and Jack Barlow is like, no, Xaden, I'm so sorry. I have zero respect for you. I'm going after her anyway. And he runs at her. And so she takes her dagger and she throws it at him, pops him right in the shoulder, and, shreds his shoulder, basically. And so he's like, oh my God, kill her. And then he runs.
But then he runs away.
He runs away.
Like it makes like so fast that it makes that like Scooby-Doo sound effect that it makes when they run away from a ghost. Like he runs really fast.
It's true. But then Orin and Tynan are still there, and now they're just committed to the mission because how dare she?
Right.
And so she has to fight both of them for a long time, frankly. to the point where Tynan like cuts almost her whole arm off.
Yeah.
And she stabs somebody, and it's like a whole thing.
She knocks Oren out, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Because they're definitely one of the two of them is still around to haunt her for a bit. Like,
Yeah. And so Xaden, she looks over, and Xaden is like taking a step toward her as if he might just interfere. But then there's a shadow and a whoosh, whoosh, whoosh that happens behind her. And Tynan looks up. And he looks up like as if he's looking at a skyscraper. All right. He's looking all the way up because there's the biggest, blackest dragon that anybody's ever seen. It's one of those matte black dragons, just like his mate, Sagail, who is Xaden's dragon. We don't know that yet, though.
No.
And he's standing there with little Goldie in between his forelegs. And he says, "Step aside, human," like into her brain.
Yeah, that's how the dragons talk.
Yeah, into their brains. That's the one.
And you can't stop them.
No.
Craig, I forget. Is that how the dragon talking happens in Aragon too? I forget.
I think it is.
Okay. It's just another dragon-related book I've read in the last
I should have
few
said
years.
this earlier. Liked this book way more than Aragon.
This
Just in
book's
case
way better
anybody's
than
wondering.
Aragon. It's way better than I read a book for the show that was in the Chronicles of Elantra series that I absolutely hated that we can talk about a little bit later because I think it illustrates what I think works about this book, even when it's doing a bunch of tropey fantasy stuff. But yeah, this big old black dragon who we've heard about before in Dragon School.
Yep.
As this impossible to bond dragon who wasn't even going to bother to show up to threshing because none of the students are cool enough.
Yep.
Has come to the aid of this little gold dragon and by extension Violet. And does he like straight up torches one of the guys,
Luke's
doesn't he?
Tynan, right?
Yeah, he torches Tynan to the ground, and then he says, "You should end the enemy that's at your feet right now." And she says, "I can't kill an unarmed, unconscious man." And then he's like, "Well, he would kill you." And she says, "That is a commentary on his character, not mine."
Ooh.
So then he says, "Get up on my back, human."
And this is when she realizes, like, oh shit, this is that black dragon, and it's choosing me. And she's, but I'm excited. I'm being excited right now. She's not excited.
No,
she's like,
terrified.
what the
She's like, what?
fuck? I don't want anything to do with this. And she can't get up because she's hurt, right? And this dragon is it's like trying to climb a skyscraper. And then he ends up bowing and putting his leg out so she can crawl up his leg. And he's like, I've seen your memories, human. I'm not letting you stab me in the leg to climb up onto my back.
The whole thing is the inverted wall is it's supposed to like prove that you can hop onto your dragon.
Yeah.
And which I thought was kind of neat. And so he knows that
really
she can't do it.
Yeah.
I was legit surprised that this happened. I know that they foreshadowed this cool sick dragon, but going into the threshing was when they also foregrounded Goldie and the feather. I was like, oh, this is gonna be kind of a like How to Train Your Dragon situation where she is the weak looking human and we get the weak looking dragon and they do cool stuff that no one has ever seen before.
Yeah.
That's what I
Maybe
thought.
that also
That's
happens.
exactly what I thought. Yeah.
But I
my
was
God.
very surprised when Taryn showed up and this all took place.
I went from thinking like when the black dragon was brought up in class, I was like, oh yeah, so that's going to be her dragon, right? But then later when we're meeting Goldie and we haven't seen the black dragon, it's like, oh, okay, the Goldie thing's going to happen. It's like one of these two tropes is going to it's going to come to pass. I just don't know which one yet.
Then turns out it's both of them.
Yeah, why not both?
They both choose.
Why not
her.
both? This is a why choose book. It turns out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Except they
This
don't
has never
fuck the
happened
dragon.
before.
This is like the
Except
only
they don't fuck the
dragon-related why choose I've ever read where they don't fuck the dragon.
That's right.
Listen, this is
Same
book one.
here.
This is book 1 of 5. We got time. We got room.
Oh my god, hang on. I'm pretty sure that Sagail would flame the shit out of
my
her
God.
real fast if she tried to fuck Taryn.
Maybe.
Especially since we find out they have such a healthy sex life. Anyway.
Dragons do be fucking in this book. Off screen, but in a way that affects you on screen.
You are very aware that there's dragon lust going on.
Yeah,
Like,
dragon riders, right? Am I right?
Oh boy.
Andrew.
Okay. So then they're flying back, right? So she gets on his back and he like takes off and little Goldie's coming with and they're flying and all of these dragons that have new riders are like doing flips and turns and all of these things. And all I can think is these people have never ridden a dragon before. I don't know how the fuck they're staying on. And he's like, well, we're about to do some crazy shit because we have to show them up because like, obviously I can't be the least cool dragon out here. So he like puts like mental bands on her legs and starts doing like death spirals through the air.
I mean, first she falls off and then he goes and catches her and we see another dragon in the same sequence whose rider falls off. He literally tells her to
stop making us look bad.
Yeah. There's another guy who falls off his dragon and he's just like, well, I guess he's dead now. It's just like another way you could get killed in dragon school is
well, and that's the thing. For every other dragon there, the flight back to the field is another
it's part of the test.
Challenge. Yeah, it's another, if you can't stay on me, then you don't deserve me. Meanwhile, he just keeps on catching her and then he keeps her on with his powers.
His brain. Yeah.
To be clear, though, when he catches her, he then proceeds to just chunk her up in the air like a sack of grain and then make sure he's underneath and to pick her up again. But like, this is another example of why I could not be a dragon rider because he would do that and I would just die on the spot. He'd be like, oh no, I broke my human. Yeah, but you did.
No, but I do love this because you said it earlier. I feel like this is a How to Train Your Dragon in reverse.
It is.
You know?
How to Train Your Human.
How to Train Your Rider.
How to Train Your Rider. Yeah. So she's really confused by this because it's been drilled into them. Dragons choose the strongest and the fiercest and the bravest and the est of everything. And so she's like, you caught me. That's fucking weird. You're helping me on your back. That's really weird. Both of those things should be like disqualifying problems. Why did you choose me? And Tarn, his name is Tarn, basically ends up by the end of the ride saying, you were incredibly brave by standing up to 3 larger people to defend Goldie. You were fierce in that defense. Like, you know, you have all of the qualities that someone needs and strength of character. And like that ended up being the thing that made me choose you. So they get down to the field. And at this point, they're all supposed to line up and tell the scroll keeper the real secret name of the dragons.
The full Christian name of each dragon.
Yeah. So I have some questions here, and we should probably just scooch past them. But also, like, one of the reasons that you go up and tell the scroll keeper the name is so they can confirm that you did not, like, coerce or force the dragon. And I was like, what first year do you think is going out there and fucking hog tie manhandling a dragon into flying? What?
I guess maybe you could, like, blackmail a dragon, maybe.
Maybe.
Like, I just think every rule has...
Play that out for us, Craig.
every rule like this has like a face attached to it, right? Like there's one person who existed who is the reason why this, and they are the person who didn't actually bond a dragon, but did come up and register a fake dragon name. Ooh. And then just like fake their way through the next 2 years of dragon school and like, all my dragons up in Canada and we'll like,
well, like you're on the field. They're like, where's your dragon? And they're just like, oh, he's shy. He's in the
He's taking a break. He's eating a goat or something somewhere.
He's doing a study abroad.
They do like a goat.
So this scene has a couple of things happening, right? Like Xaden's bouncing around, wondering what's going on. Dane is wandering around, wondering why she's not dead and like, you know, smothering her. Her mother is there because she's, you know, general number 2. Yes. So there's like a confrontation with the mother thing. Also, we like briefly meet, what is his name? Megrel or something, like whatever the lead general is, whose cool magic power is like knowing how battles will work out.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Which doesn't seem like great for a full-time general position.
You've been in a forever war. Like, your power's worthless, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's that he can like see what's going to happen to individual people. Maybe there's something
with the rebels clouds his vision too.
Yeah, which is a weird loophole for his dragon to put in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Since his dragon's the one who marked all of them. Anyway. So she has to go up and tell the Christian name of the dragon in order to prove that like it's her dragon. And she's hearing her mom talk to other people and they're like, oh my gosh, Violet bonded. And then she goes, don't say his name. Wait until she says it. And she's like, wow, my mom doesn't even believe the things she's looking like at with her eyeballs because I'm so weak, apparently. Mm-hmm. So she goes up and she tells the scroll person, his name is Tirnanok and he's mine. And then in her brain parts, little Goldie one says, and I'm Aranandura or something like that.
And Darna. Wait, okay. So the full
name is
Andarna.
That's what it is.
Yes, and then Andarna Yoram is the full name. Yeah.
Yeah. And so she says, and Andarna Yoram. And then the lady's like, both dragons? And I love this because a few chapters, there's like 3 chapters that ends with, and all hell breaks loose. Because like this crazy thing happened.
Yelling! Yeah. People are just running around.
No, it is like the moment in some like movie where like a girl tries to sign up for a football team and like somebody's monocle falls out or something. It's very scandalizing for everybody at this dragon school.
Well, yeah, because like it hits the shan. Everybody is pissed. Yeah. They're like, she can't do that. She can't have more than one dragon. All these things, and it's like, again,
everybody's like,
what do these humans think they can do about it?
Yeah.
Well, and then the dragons are like, listen, we're gonna go over on the other side of that mountain. We're gonna smoke some cigars and have Dragon Congress. This is the Empyrean. That is like their government.
That's the one.
Because this has never happened before. And so, like, they're going to go talk about it. And all the humans are like, we had opinions, but I guess they don't matter.
Yeah.
Because they don't.
Guess we'll just
you're
wait.
little, you don't do anything. You're just little people. You get all your powers from the dragon.
As far as the dragons are concerned, all of them are weenie boys. Like,
yes.
True.
Absolutely. So the dragons finally come back and it stands. She gets both dragons. But while the dragons are talking, I'm so sorry, a very important thing happens. Dane comes over and he says, are you sure that really happened to you? Tell me everything. And she's like, yeah, I was there. Tells him the whole story. And then he says, they're going to make you choose. And when they make you choose, you have to choose the tiny, small one that will never go into battle. And you can just go sit in a corner and crochet together. That's my plan. My name is Dane. Hello. And then she's like, no, I'm not going to choose. Like, no human has ever chosen. That's not going to happen. He keeps on trying to talk her into it. And then he finds out Xaden was there. And he's like, don't you see what Xaden did? And then Xaden comes out of those shadows. And he says, please tell me what it is you think I did.
Oh, and at this point, this is when, so before Taryn even went to the Empyrean thing, he told her, he was like, go with Xaden. Do not trust anybody else. And so she ends up with Dane because Dane's a needy little shit and pulls her aside before she can do it. Plus, like, why is she gonna, like, she's like, this is a brand new dragon. I know that dude wants to kill me. So, like, I'm gonna go, like, fuck that.
Right.
But then this is when we find out that Xaden's dragon, Sagael, is Taryn's mate. And that's actually why Taryn even showed up, is because Sagael was in that meadow and she was like, hey, babe, can you come here for a second?
And Darna's in trouble.
I can't do shit because of these stupid human rules, and they're the one time that I pay any attention to what the humans fucking want, but it doesn't matter what you do. So, like, can you come over here for a second? And then that's when Taryn goes, and just like comes and like flops down. And now this is when we find out that because Taryn was all fucked up emotionally by the death of his rider. So that's when he was like, I'm never taking a human again. They suck. They make me sad. I got tears in my eyes. And then he comes in, chooses her. Well, if his next rider dies, he possibly won't survive it because he'll be so heartbroken.
It's so sad.
Yes. The saddest dragon.
Yeah.
And then if he dies, Sagael dies. Mm-hmm. Because your dragon mate dies. And if Sagael dies, Xaden dies.
Yeah, it's a big, like, mutually assured destruction thing.
And so now, Xaden, I hate you, Rorios, or whatever his name is like, now I have to protect this one. I don't have a choice.
If you die, I die. Period. The end. I have to protect you. Meanwhile, shut up, Violet. He's been protecting you this whole fucking time.
Yeah, of course he has. Is his last name Ryerson? I remember because of The guy from the movie Groundhog Day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ned Ryerson.
Zayden Ryerson. Remember me? Zayden?
Sorry.
Then he steps in a puddle or whatever. Yeah.
To be clear, though, the only death he's interested in giving her is 1000% the little death. Like, get your head out of your ass.
That's the one.
Okay?
Yeah.
Like,
that French death.
Gazing at you from the...
Yeah.
Christ. Anyway.
So they start doing flying trainings, and that's not going well. She does keep on falling off like 36 times in an hour.
Yeah.
Because she wants to try to learn. Because the problem is if he uses his power to keep her on, then he doesn't have enough power to murder people, I guess.
Yeah, it takes power from him if he has to worry about her not being able to stay on his back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at this point, a few things happen, and I think we just sort of have to skim through it. Shit finally comes to a head with Dane because he finds out that she can't keep her seat. And he, once again, after she's been chosen by 2 dragons, he tries to talk her into, like, you know, thinking that she's shit. And she finally says, I'm going to cut you out of my life. Like, we're not. Oh, also they kissed.
He's also
Dane kissed her.
Yeah, they kissed at the dragon ceremony, and she was like, well, this isn't doing anything for me.
Oh, yeah. And she's like, fuck this. I never wanted to kiss that guy again.
Yeah.
You're bad.
And then he tries to let her down easy. And she's really, really relieved until she finds out that, like, it's just because he can't bang a younger student.
The optics are bad.
Yeah, the rules of dragon school. I've got to.
Is that also Is it, somewhere in this is also the thing where Dane's like, Zayden, you would have bent the rules to save her.
Yeah.
And Zayden's like, wouldn't you? And he's like, no.
I really super wouldn't have.
I'm really a Millhouse and I will never.
Right before Taryn shows up, like Zayden moves to kill the weenie boys, even though he's not supposed to. And Violet sees that and like notes it as like, oh yeah, he is not supposed to break the rules, but he clearly intended to until something else happened.
Yeah. And this is also like, this is when Violet is like, get fucked, Dane.
Yeah.
So I think our talking about stuff out of order will benefit us here. Like we did talk about the dragon saddle already, which is pretty cool, and how it like that's
and Zayden gets that for her. He designs and
builds
gets it.
And makes it so the dragon can put it on and take it off himself.
And Taryn's like, I would never let him put something on me I couldn't take off. Please, I'm Taryn.
This is also like Taryn. We like very swiftly we find out that Taryn is the sassiest, grouchiest grandpa of a dragon.
But he's got heart of gold. Heart of gold.
Yes. He loves hard, everybody.
Like the biggest development I think that happens like post threshing that we need to talk about until we start getting into sort of like endgamey kind of stuff is there's an attempt on Violet's life by a big group of students who weren't chosen by dragons, but aided by one person who was chosen by a dragon. And she has this moment with Andarna, the little yellow gold dragon, where he comes in and like briefly stops time so that she can like escape from these people, and Zayden has time to get to her and like come in and kill them all.
Well, yeah, because she was trying to figure out what she was going to do, and Taryn's in her head, and he's like, I can't help you, but I'm sending
help. I can't make it
help.
in time. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
because he can talk to Segale, who can then talk to. And like you find out that they can actually all talk to each other.
And they all,
they're a big happy family.
Kind of network their brains and can all talk to each other.
They set up the family group chat.
And they do like basically brain sexed each other in the fucking cafeteria and like in the middle of class.
Yeah.
But you're right, Andrew, because it's like she's in a headlock, and then Darna helps her like freeze time.
Yeah, because it's like a thing because she's not going to get powers directly from Andarna until he's older, but there is this thing that he can do that's like unique to younger dragons, feather tails, whatever the designation you want to use as, where they have like these strange powers that even the dragons don't really understand that they grow out of later, but that they'd have initially.
Well, and they find like, I bet this is going to come back later in the series because like they can legitimately, like humans can take that power is not the dragon's power being channeled. That power is like, you can kill that dragon.
It's a direct
by taking that power. Yeah. And
if you freeze time for too long, Andarna can die.
Yeah. So it's nuts because Zayden comes in, he vanquishes all of the foes that are present, And then there's a sexy point where he has to take off her corset a little bit to check her ribs. It's fine, everyone.
Yeah, no big deal, whatever.
Her silky soft skin.
I love to go to murder college where my RA bursts in and murders 6 people in my room for me.
And then wants to touch your bare skin.
And then feels me up. To check quote check your ribs.
I just would like to note the description while time is frozen of him in the door like an avenging angel.
He's
listener,
got a
you're gonna
on.
like that description, my friend.
Wowza. So then he takes her, they have a family meeting, and they find out all this shit about Feathertails and what Andrew just described. And then after that, we sort of have to move on to the channeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is people have started having their power. So essentially what happens is the dragon channels their power, but the power is different. So even if that dragon has had a rider before, you're not going to have the same power as the rider that had that dragon before you, because the power, your signet power, is based on who you are as a person, right? And so it's something at your core, and that's how it's going to be. So people their powers have started coming up. So we know that I don't remember if we talked about this earlier, but Dane's power is if he touches your face like a fucking weirdo, then he can see your most recent memories, which I wish that I had remembered a lot until the end of the book when I found out what had happened, and I was like, you son of a bitch. Yeah. Anyway, and then another but it's fucked up because some of the powers, they'll kill you over it. So there's one type of power called the intrinsic or something like that, where you just you hear everybody's voices in your head, what they're thinking, and straight up one of the professors just rolls up in the middle of the quad to this dude and snaps his neck, which, to be fair, that dude was losing it.
Yeah.
Here's what I liked about that scene is it's the payoff for the can you just recite Wikipedia to calm yourself? Because she knows things about Xaden and about the dragons. And while this guy, because he's literally just saying things from people's brains. It's every when a mutant from X-Men gets their telepathy power and it's kind of out of control.
He's a Sookie Stackhouse right now.
Yes.
But very overwhelmed.
And unsurprisingly, just a note, unsurprisingly, Dane's I wonder if Violet's ever going to forgive me. Fuck you, Dane.
And so Xaden's listen, you got to start doing your Wikipedia thing or else he's going to learn all our secrets. And so that is the kind of payoff for that thing that has happened a couple times, which was kind of neat.
Yeah.
With I think Segale says it. It's Mira is a protective person, so she has a protective ward power. Dane needs to know everything, so he has a weird memory power. Yeah, and we don't know what Violet's is going to be.
Xaden has secrets.
Yeah, Xaden has secrets, so he's Shadow Boy.
He's a Shadow Boy. Oh no!
And so her power is not coming in. Almost everybody else who's been bonded has had their signet
they're dropping flies when their signets are coming in.
For sure.
Yeah. Sometimes it overwhelms them and they self-immolate or whatever.
Yeah.
But when they finally decide that she's ready to start channeling power, she can then start feeling the emotions of the dragons. And the very first night, she starts feeling the power going up and down her magic dragon tattoo. Does she get hit by the hornies?
Yeah,
real hard.
Yeah, it's pretty horny. Mm-hmm.
Remember when we read that Star Trek book, Andrew? That Star Trek. It was the writer who started doing fanfic, and then she wrote that
it was the
Kirk Spock.
A canon.
It reminded me of the Vulcan
Kirk
horny
Spock thing. Yeah,
the Vulcan horny disease.
Ponfar.
Whatever
every
it's
7
called.
years, you gotta go have sex with somebody, or you're gonna go
or
nuts.
else you die.
Or you're gonna die. Yeah, that sounds right.
Her body is on fire with Tarn's boner, basically.
Yes, because he and Segale are having
let's speak in plain
mate
English
sex.
here.
Well, and so she goes outside because she's I gotta get the fuck out of here, and
because she's about to jump Liam, her friend.
Yeah. So she goes outside, and Xaden's just chilling out there smoking Dragon World weed because he's sometimes they forget to block us out, man. You're just gonna have to get used to it. So
it dulls my senses a little bit. And so she's out there like a cat on a hot tin roof, just trying to keep it together. And he's like, well, do you know how to shield? And she's like, no, I don't know how to shield. I started this is the first day. This is my day 1. So he's like, okay, I'll teach you how to shield.
To be clear, I didn't have a problem with this face touching. Just throwing that out there. This face touching was not a problem.
That's the one, because it was hot. So he grabs her face and she's like, it requires you touching me? And he's like, no, I'm just a little bit addled by the horniness. And so here I go. So he teaches her how to do that. And he's like, you're amazing. Oh my God, it took me 2 weeks to figure out just the first step or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then he is looking at her lips real hard and she is noticing. And then he's like, it would be a huge mistake. And she's like, yeah. Be a giant mistake. He's like, yeah, we would regret it in the morning. She's like, naturally, we would totally regret it. And then he's like, I can't handle it anymore. And so he grabs her and he puts her against the wall and he picks her up by her thighs and she's got her legs wrapped around him and they're doing a big giant hot makeout. Mm-hmm. And she's finally getting to touch his hair. She's never touched his hair before. She's been thinking about that for a while.
As soft as she knew it would be.
Yeah.
It's the only soft part of his body.
This makeout. This makeout is hitting her a lot better than the one with Dane did.
Yeah.
That Dane one was a total boner killer.
So then he's like, oh my fucking God, no, this isn't you. This is fucking Terrence Boner trying to grind me down.
Yes.
And so he like drops her. He's like, you need to go inside. And she's like, okay, fine.
But it is my boner though. And he's like, no, it's not. You don't know anything about your own boners. And she's like, okay, fine. And then she leaves.
I guess they also don't teach you how to jerk off at Dragon School. Like, why can't people?
Why do you need to jerk off at Dragon School when you're fucking all of your cohort with your fertility suppressants?
Yeah, and like, did you not bring one vibrator? They're so light.
What the fuck kind of vibrator do you think that they had?
They probably have a bunch of cool like dragon-themed ones.
They have indoor plumbing. And when you start getting your
the Morningstar tail.
That's the one.
Whoa.
Yeah. All right. So book 2 is going to be kinky is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
There are interviews with Yarros where she says the setup she was really interested in was this forced proximity between, like the setup for the enemies to lovers is like, yo, you're stuck together because of these dragons.
Yeah.
And then, of course, she escalates it into these dragons like
dragons.
to fuck, and now you need to figure that out.
Yeah.
Which I would like, this is like, can say this was my first time experiencing dragon sex essentially on page.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then, okay, the next thing that happens is like, it's time for Squad Wars, I think.
So one important thing that becomes a huge thing later, like discussed a lot. So the person who made sure that everybody could get into her room to kill her while she was sleeping essentially gets put up on trial.
Right.
Yeah, that was Amber.
That bitch.
It's the same woman who ratted on her for using daggers.
Yeah. And so Violet is like, it was Amber, and Xaden just believed her. Like, he didn't need proof. He was like, okay, I trust you. And so he basically pulls her up on trial. Meanwhile, Dane fucking turns around and he's like, no, there's no way that it was Amber. That's not possible.
And
he's like, can I touch your face?
No,
so
he
that I
doesn't
can get
say that.
evidence.
He doesn't say that. He reaches for her, notably.
And then she's like, get the fuck away. And then she tells Taryn, she's like, hey, can you share my memory with like everybody? Because Dane can't touch her because right after that happened is when they find out all of the stuff about the featherling or the baby
because
dragon.
The time stoppage.
Yeah. And so she can't share that memory even if she wanted to, even if Dane wasn't trying to suck it out of her with his soul.
She needs somebody to redact the memory before it is shared. And that is what Taryn can do. He's going to copy paste just that section, send it out to everybody's brain parts. And so he does, and the whole place gets the memo. And then they're like, oh, yeah, Amber, you're toast now. So she gets like put down immediately.
Torched.
Well, and like this just goes into part of her psyche. It's just another look into her psyche because she begs for Amber's life. She asked Taryn, like, please don't kill her. Like, just give her a chance. And he's like, you gave Oren a chance and he tried to kill you in your sleep. Never again. Yeah. And so like, this is just another example of her. She doesn't want people to die. Like, she is in rider school, but
just want to kill.
Yeah. Which sets us up for war games. So like her power's not been coming in and she really doesn't like killing people. But and I forget, honestly, like all these war games things play out like extended capture the flag sequences, basically. But she is on one team and Jack, the evil boy, is on another team. Mm-hmm. And she is riding her dragon and she sees Jack like stabbing Liam, her friend that we mentioned. We're not gonna, I don't think, get to spend as much time with the friends who I liked. Like Liam I liked, Rhiannon I liked a lot, but they just aren't as big a deal as like the boys who really suck or Xaden. Yeah,
Liam came up with Xaden. He's part of the rebels. Xaden assigned Liam to her to be her shadow and protect her, and then they actually become friends. I like the whole Liam thing.
It's really, you have to kind of read the book, because something I think it does well is delineates the difference between like condescending protection like Dane is trying to offer and like empowering
empowering useful protection.
Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. So 2 things happen after Liam gets stabbed. He's like falling to the ground off of his dragon. First thing is Violet draws on Andarna's like time-stopping power to like help Taryn swoop down and save Liam. Second thing is she's like, I have made the mistake of letting this guy live too many times. I got to do something. And so she feels this like energy just like crackling inside of her, and she's so mad. And she like smites him from on high with a bolt of lightning.
Zeus, like God and the thunder on him.
Mm-hmm. But notably, because of her character, she thinks that she's basically gonna do a signet blockage explosion.
Yeah.
And so she's like, my dragon's going to be fine. He's fireproof. But if I get close enough to Jack, I'll at least take him out as I go.
Yeah, as I explode. Yeah.
But instead, she becomes a Zeus. Mm-hmm. And she hits that whole tower with lightning, and he falls to his death. And she's so surprised that, like, she is alive and Jack is dead. And that means that she has committed a murder.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it, like, shakes her to her core. Yeah.
Yeah. But meanwhile, Taryn is roaring, and in her mind, he's screaming, "Lightning Wielder!"
Yeah, right.
And it's like the best thing ever.
Because this is a fantasy book, like, she's the first lightning wielder in 100 years, and it's, this little unassuming girl who nobody thought would make it anywhere is going to end up being this, like, vital weapon to the war effort. And,
she's, like, the weapon. And, like, to the point where, like, the generals and the big dogs in charge are like, that's a little concerning that Xaden and Violet are basically attached at the hip because of their dragons who are mates, because they have 2 of the most powerful powers that have ever powered.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like kind of just like background anxiety around the fact that like, well, now that they're together all the time, so they win war games because they do a cool Ocean's 11 where they steal the map out of her mom's office.
Yes.
It's very fun.
And also they keep the flag and they get the egg. Those are all the things you need to know.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then so they get to go out on the front lines on like a little field trip where they meet, they see Mira, her sister, they see Rhiannon's family. It's all cool. But then Xaden has to be there because the dragons can't be apart for like more than 3 days, or I guess they're like freak out because they can't bang. I guess
they're too horny. They can't live without.
Their health will diminish.
And so there is this open question, like if everyone stays in dragon school, he's going to graduate and go out and be in the army, and she's going to still be in school. This is a classic question we've all dealt with. Like, somebody's, a few grades ahead, and like they're going to go off to a different school, and like how are you going to stay in touch?
Except
so
they don't have
really
an option. They have to do long distance.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, they're not even, all they've done is smooch at this point, and everybody's still like, how is this going to work? So that's kind of I think the front is just like they go there. We get some cool character time, and then it's like, it's not great up here. Everybody go home.
We're getting throughout the book like little drips and drabs of. So you get a little bit of like war strategy stuff in Battle School where they're looking at like the outposts and how the wards are going down. We talked a little bit before about this part of the book being maybe a little less filled in than the parts where they grind against each other.
I think it's on purpose. I think there's a version of it that's like all on purpose, that is about how some of this stuff is being concealed. Mm-hmm. But as you're reading the book the first time, it does feel kind of like some stuff is just getting yada yada.
It's a little hand wavy, But you're being given the impression intentionally that there's something that somebody is hiding. Like there's some kind of mystery about like how these attacks are happening and like how the Navarans are responding to it that just doesn't quite add up.
Yeah. And there's weird shit that's being concealed even though it's not classified, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But The important part, I think, about the trip to the front is that Mira sees the weirdness between the three of them. And she chides Dane, and then she tells Violet in front of Xaden, like, he will turn you into a shadow. You don't have to kill someone in order to ruin them. What he's going to do is he's going to use this mating situation to make it so you never get trained right, and he stays the most powerful, and you are in his shadow. And then finally, Xaden says, I'm right here. And instead of meaning it like, I'm like, stop talking about me in front of me, he's saying, we had an issue where there was a proximity need, and I came to her instead of making her come to me. I have shit at home, but I came to her when she's on a field trip. So can you like get off my dick a little bit? And then
not you, Violet. You get back.
Yeah, no,
on
not
there.
you. Get on here, girl. And then Mira says, if you like, there's an attack. And so she's like, if you want me to ever trust you, you have to get her out of here. And so he manhandles her out of there with another good smooch. And it's great. But now, after she murders Jack to death with that big Zeus power, she gets back. And when they land, Taryn's been trying to say, like, that was necessary. You had to do it. Don't feel bad about it. But she gets down and, like, she pukes everywhere. She's having a really hard time. Dane comes over and he's like, oh, sweetie baby, you don't ever have to do that again if you don't want to, because I know you can't handle it. And then Xaden comes over and he says, stop with that bullshit. She's going to have to deal with this because there's no way they're not going to, like, use her. She's the most powerful weapon we've ever seen lately. And so he sort of talks her off the ledge in a very tough love but compassionate way. And then later on, as she's sort of wallowing in her room, throwing daggers at targets because sadness and guilt.
He comes to comfort her.
He sure does, doesn't he?
It's on.
It's
TM.
on TM.
Turns out, couple of keynotes here, just throwing it out there. When Violet comes, lightning everywhere. He is losing. He sets fire. She's setting fires on the property to the like. God. By the way,
she sets multiple trees on fire. She sets
he's like losing control of. He's losing control of his shadow powers, and so like they break the armoire. They shatter her like thing that her target practice.
Her chair is
desk
toast.
is fucked. The only thing they don't ruin is her bed because they ruin every other piece of furniture.
Hot. Okay, it's hot. And the whole time they're like talking to each other because she's like, he keeps on trying to tell her, you don't want this. And she keeps saying, stop telling me what I want. I know exactly what I want. And it's only you.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's great character stuff.
Oh, this is also, they can speak into each other's brains at this point. Not just to their dragons. Right. Like the four of them, they're like in a little, they got a little group chat going on.
A brain network.
It's great. Also, I would just like to make the comment, reading this scene, I was like, being an outside party, I don't want those neighbors.
Oh, I would be so mad. I would be so mad if I was Liam next door.
Yeah.
I would,
go the fuck to sleep, you assholes.
I've had that apple tree for 50 years. You struck it with lightning.
My great granddad planted that tree.
Yeah, because you decided you need to come 4 times tonight instead of just once.
Yes.
At the very least, get some fucking control, buddy. Like,
I mean, he does say that it's something they're going to work on later, so what to, it's fine.
I mean,
and of course, at this point,
when you work on computers, they make little like electrostatic like wrist straps that you put around your wrists so that you don't like zap any of the parts that you're working with. So maybe they just need to get like a bunch of those.
I like it.
She's just in like an anti-zappy latex suit. Like, what are we doing here?
I don't hate it.
Whoa.
I don't hate it.
She's just in a Faraday cage. It's fine.
Do you think that Taryn and Sigale are like, they're listening to all of this, right? And they're like,
yes, because Taryn.
do they think it's hot?
I don't know. I feel like it's beneath them.
Yeah. Does it have the same effect on Taryn and Sigale?
Is it like when I like hear cats in the alley? Like,
no, I think you have to. No, because I think...
Well, no, because I'm not bonded with the cats through
your
a mental
perception of that
thing.
would be annoying. It'd have to be somebody who you could hear having sex and you'd be like, oh, that's nice. I'm glad that they're getting
I hope
they're
it's
getting
like
it.
that.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Oh
Yeah.
man, how inspiring. Taryn.
Absolutely.
Oh, so during this thing though, he's like afterwards they're like snuggling in bed. She asks him to stay with her and he's like, whatever you do, don't fall for me.
Oh my God, he does the don't fall for me.
This is like 80% of into the book too. Like it's happened already. Yeah.
And she's like, only if you don't fall for me. It's like, you both are fucking ding dongs. Obviously, you're already in love with each other. You're just too emotionally stunted to fucking admit it.
You made her a dragon saddle. Like,
yeah.
The next morning, he wakes up and leaves because he has to go to one of his training things. And he goes and picks violets and brings it back to her room to leave on her bedside table so she knows he was thinking of her.
But he hasn't caught any feelings. He has no intention of falling for her, everyone.
this is just normal stuff that I would do for any of my bros.
Absolutely, it's bro stuff.
Any of your bros that you fuck up an arm wall with?
Yeah.
So the next day, they're like, he comes to her room again and he's like, I've got an idea of what we can do tonight. And one of the things I love about Violet is that she is, fearlessly honest. Even when she knows, like, it'll fuck up whatever she wants. And so in this case, she says, have you changed your mind about the whole I shouldn't fall for you thing? And he's like, no, hard no, definitely don't do that. And she's like, I don't think with you in particular, I can separate sex and feelings.
Yeah, right.
So if that's your hard line, then we can't do this anymore. And he's like, I hate that this is my hard line. And then they do a sexy game of chicken. Kind of.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, well, I guess I'll just forget about how your thick cock did do things in my lady bits. And he's like, yeah. And I'll forget how your channel did clutch me. It's a whole thing. Okay.
There's also, so we actually like technically earlier that day, and I just have to talk about this because it made me laugh so fucking hard. I had to put the book down because I was laughing so hard I was tearing up. She goes with Professor Carr out into the middle of fucking nowhere to learn how to use her lightning, where she can't set anything on fire. And he's like, so what makes it happen? And she's like, I get emotional things. And he's like, well, imagine the bloody blah. Like, imagine it. Just bring it. And she's like, I don't know. Let me just try this. And then Xaden rolls up in her head.
Then he just starts Xeroxing sex images into her mind.
Sending her sex videos. And then, whoa, just like lightning everywhere. And then Professor Carr is like, oh, interesting. That was so good. And then he sees her face is all red. And he's like, it's okay. Lightning wielders just get a little overheated. And she's like,
hot. It's cool. It's not that somebody's sending you telepathic dick pics. It's definitely just that you get a little overheated.
It's worse than telepathic dick pics because she can feel what he was feeling.
Well, it's his perspective of the sex they had the night before.
That was kind of wild. Yeah.
So it's like her moaning underneath him or whatever.
I had to put the book down for a second because I was like,
it's so funny.
It's like, I felt uncomfortable for her.
Oh, secondhand embarrassment.
So they sleep together a second time, or they are about to, and I don't remember what that's.
No, it's like they
on
do it again.
Day.
Yeah, like after the big
the celebration day,
the big ball where the king comes and like
it's a celebration of his dad's death.
Yeah,
basically,
all the former
and
rebels,
her brother's death.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
And they have a big like confrontation on a windswept parapet where it all began. Where she finally gets him to like break down and admit, yeah, I have feelings for you. Obviously, I have feelings for you.
Duh.
And they go back to the room and they like I believe she comes 5 times. I think that's what she said.
They were working on the
number
5th
5
when they get Garrick is knocking on the door and Xaden's like, there better be somebody fucking dying if I get out of that bed.
He says we're under attack. Yeah. But it's not really an under attack. They're just going to do the last stage of war games. Mm-hmm. So this is like the end game of the book. We're getting it from their perspective, so there's like limited information. It is weird that everyone's being sent places without even knowing what they're supposed to do. But I think that is, again, it's a little bit of on purpose because our main character, Xaden, he puts together a crack team of only rebels.
And Violet.
And
her.
Violet. And Violet.
Isn't
pulls
that
her out of her squad.
A break of the giant law?
It is.
Like, I'm
for
not
sure
sure
is, right?
why they're allowed to do that.
That's
in the first
intended.
place.
Well, and so this is also the point, though. So when she gets down there, she's coming straight from Xaden's room. So she has his jacket on. And this is when Dane realizes she and Xaden are a thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so she's supposed to go with Dane's squad to his part of the war games. But Xaden rolls up and he's like, Liam and Violet's coming with me. And because we're going to be gone for 5 days and our dragons need a fuck. So, like,
Yeah.
she's coming with me. And Dane is like, she can't go with you. And he's like,
Yeah, she
well,
can't.
she is. And then Dane, I did not catch this until it came up later in the book, but he was like,
That's
all
why he's
missy
doing his
Violet.
fucking creepy face touching.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Dane's dad is the one who's like calling out where people are going to go. They're going to go to this outpost. Like Xaden's group is going to go to this outpost that's like
beyond
off by
where
the
the
border.
wards are. Yeah.
Beyond where the wards are.
The
So very dangerous.
wards.
Yeah.
And so like there's some stuff where they're on the way and they got to stop and they got to talk and they got to have feelings.
They make out.
Real
Bit-
quick,
bit-
Make out
this is when
notably
we
for
find
me.
out
next to a creek
that
or whatever.
Andarna has a special
Andarna,
baby
you're a-
harness to get attached to the front of Terrence
she
because
says-
she's coming with.
She says, the wing leader made it for me. And this is right after she's been boned down real good. And so Violet's like, yet another reason to just love Xaden. Like, oh, man. Also, she has told him she's fully in love with him. And he's been like, you have all of me that I have to offer.
Well, and he
It's
also
fine.
says, I love your hair.
Yeah. He can't say I love your
After
hair. Yeah. So when they're making out by this lake, the two Griffin riders come out of the mist. And she's like, oh my God, we're under attack. She's about to get her lightning out. And he grabs her and he's like, cool it. If you ever trusted me, just trust me right now. And then she gets Taryn over there. Everybody's now in this confrontation with these two Griffin riders, except she realizes it's not a confrontation. They're BFFs.
Yeah.
And
They know each other from before.
Yeah, Xaden's been working with them for a while. So she immediately thinks, like, these are traitors. But then the Griffin Riders start being like, we're just here to warn you because a bunch of Venin are on their way to, like, right across the street from your outpost.
Yeah.
And she's
You mean
like,
the Fables?
yeah, this is the craziness that's coming out of these people's mouths, these liar faces. Venin aren't real. They're fables.
What are you gonna tell me that wyverns are real next? Come on.
Of course, the wyverns aren't there. Is that how you pronounce wyvern?
Is it wyvern? I always
It's
said
wyvern.
wyvern, but Craig
I've
said
always said
wyverns,
wyvern.
and so I was trying not to make him feel
Okay,
bad.
it doesn't really matter.
The audiobook person said wyvern. I don't know.
I think it is wyverns.
Regardless, the Wibbles, they
Doesn't
don't know
matter.
that there are any Wibbles out there. They haven't seen them.
Yeah, they're not wobbling anywhere. No. I'm so sorry, everyone.
They would be wobbling. They only got two little stubby legs. They're so big. They're
Yeah.
like flying T-Rexes without the tiny arms. Anyway, so the Griffin Flyers, because
Not riders.
Zayden
Flyers.
makes a point of that. They're flyers, not
I
riders.
like that she's like, you're a traitor. Don't hit me with semantics. Yeah. I don't understand you.
How dare you, sir?
Do you not actually right after you like break my heart?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly
But so
what he does.
they're Venin going after they're interested in something in this trade town for the whatever the name of that country is.
Doesn't matter.
Navarre?
Yeah, rest in the
semantics. Who cares?
Powell.
They have to make the decision. So they go into the castle or like the fortress because they still don't know exactly what's going on when they're looking at the trade town. But they open the missive, and basically what the note says is
stay alive.
Stay alive, but you have a choice: either defect and rebel and save all of this town of people, or come play a war game where you might get killed for no reason by your fellow dragon rider and let all those people burn.
But at least you'll be perceived as loyal. And
that's right.
And Violet's like her decision she makes like after she finds out all this stuff is like, I believe you that like all these like magic fables are real because there was a note from my dad in that book that makes sense now. But you still broke my trust and I still don't trust you.
A book that apparently the library doesn't have because it's forbidden.
Yeah, a book that the country has redacted from history.
And he comes clean to her at some point where he's like, we've been giving these people this yada yada magic resource,
magic
unobtainium, whatever, that we've been giving to the folks in the other kingdom because they're fighting these monsters, but we're the only people who have this stuff.
Yeah, the unobtainium.
And we're just sitting pretty behind the wards because they can't use their magic past the wards because no magic works except for dragon magic.
Yeah, so they've been like weaving whatever this bullshit is into daggers and giving it to the Griffin flyers so that they can poke these venin and the venin will combust. Goodbye, venin.
But they also know, she knows that there's one of those daggers in her mom's office, or a weapon made of the same material in her mom's office from the heist that they pulled. Yeah. So clearly people in power in Navarre know something about what's going on, and then nobody's talking about it. The other thing that they learn is that based on this message, it's clear that people knew Xaden, something was up with Xaden when they sent him here, which we come to realize is because Dane stole a memory
her face
and then told his dad about it because he's a narc.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
I don't want your skin oil on my face. Stop it.
And so then, there's the
big cool battle.
There's the big confrontation. There's like the realization that like it explores a little bit the connection between the wyverns and the venin, yeah, where just as dragons and their riders have like this emotional connection, if you kill a venin, like all the wyverns that he or she has magically created,
flip-flop.
Also die.
Yeah. So
I cried.
A
lot during this fight.
It was very sad.
I sobbed and sobbed. Both times I read this book, I sobbed. We haven't done a lot to make you fall in love with Liam, but boy, Rebecca Yarros,
the book
you did a lot to make me fall in love with Liam.
He's a nice boy.
And Liam ends up dying horribly because his dragon gets killed, and so he's just gonna die even though there's nothing physically wrong with him. Yeah. And so she has to sort of grapple with that. And then that is the impetus of her being like, I'm gonna burn it all down. And Liam is the one who figures out that if you take out one rider, all of the wyvern they created will be destroyed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she and Tarn and all of them work together, and Darna ends up freezing time for a minute so that she can, wield the lightning toward one of the venin.
Because she has terrible aim, just so everybody knows.
God.
The description of them is very gross.
They're gross.
Yeah, they're
gross.
They have like weird veins. They
have spidery red veins all over them. Their eyes are always like red and bloodshot.
That's part of what works for me about this book is like, I think you're probably showing up for the loving, but all of the like fantasy nuts and bolts stuff, like the way the action sequences play out, like even though Yarros is writing this like to serve a specific market niche, like she does a better job than a lot
really good job.
Bad fantasies
this was
that
a
I've read.
Good
like setting it up.
scene.
Yeah, it's a good battle. Yeah. Like you pretty much know where everyone is always. You know what the stakes are. And yeah,
and there are actual stakes.
Yeah.
I like that there are actual stakes, but I also like that we haven't in the first book of the series jumped to like saving the entire school.
Right.
Like I like that it is an outpost of people that we don't even really know, and it's mostly a moral test for our characters of like, can they stick with saving these, for her anyway, these strangers and from the other kingdom. And like characters we know are going to get hurt and die and whatever, but it's not like, it doesn't just blow up completely to galaxy level stakes at the end of this first book. And yet it's all very clear stakes, like what they're trying to do beat to beat. It's really nice.
And they're still very high. Yeah. So during this battle, one of the venin jumps onto Tarn and ends up stabbing her with a poison dagger. And then she ends up, killing the big bad venin, and then Xaden ends up killing the other one, so all the wyvern fall. Everything's over. But when that happens, she tumbles off of Tarn and Andarna ends up like freezing time and like catching her and getting her to the ground, even though she's not big enough to like really bear her. She basically breaks her fall to the ground. And then they realize that she's been poisoned and she's bleeding black blood, black sludge. Bad news, bears.
It's not good. You're not supposed to bleed that.
No, I've never heard that being great. And so he's like, if we try to get her back to our mender, that's a 12-hour flight. And then, because I'm a Sherlock Holmes, I knew exactly what was going to happen.
I was legit surprised by this. I did not see this coming.
I had no
idea. There was enough that was fishy about like the circumstances of some people who had died that I was like, is this gonna end with her meeting a certain character again? And then absolutely it did.
He goes, we have to take her to him.
It's okay, Craig. I was with you. I had no idea.
I think I was just along for the ride of like, oh, he's got a whole, I was like, oh, there's this secret operation.
Yeah.
Clearly they would have menders. Clearly that, I had not big brained the rest of the book.
Yeah, that's where I was.
So they carry her to a place. She can no longer hear Tarn or Andarna or Xaden. Like she's completely cut off.
Emotional again.
I know. That's why I had to whimsy Liam's death because I'm a wreck over that. Anyway, so she ends up being taken to this like other place. And when she wakes up, we get the last chapter from Xaden's perspective. And Xaden has been by her side for 3 whole days, okay? She's been sleeping and sleeping. She wakes up and she's like not quite together. And so she kisses him real good. And then everything rolls back into her brain. And she's like, oh, wait, you're a big betraying liar. And I can't trust you anymore. And we're not together. So then he says, I need to know if you're with us. And she says, yeah, I mean, I'm definitely with you. We're just not together. But I'll of course do the right thing where it comes to actual Venin and Wyvern. And then there's like a big knock at the door. And he's like, oh man, I've got no time. He's such an impatient mess. He's going to be in here right now. And then she's like, Xaden, one more thing. Do you think that all of that was sort of happenstance? Like we were sent to this fort where Venin were lured there and like all the, do you think that was just an accident? And then the door opens and she hears a familiar voice say, oh no, little sis, that wasn't an accident at all. And then he says, welcome to the revolution, Violet.
Yeah. It's her brother.
Brendan is alive.
Yeah, her brother's alive.
Brendan's the one who mended her. Oh my God.
When I tell y'all, my poor dogs were asleep. They were just big chilling. I accidentally stabbed myself with my knitting needle. I was like, my dogs were like, oh my God. And I was like, ow. Fuck yeah.
I texted you. I was like, this book has the best last line I've read in
Welcome to the
a
rebellion.
very long time.
What?
Yeah.
Ma'am.
It's really great of Rebecca Yarros to be like, okay, I'm going to drop this cliffhanger on you and then I'm going to write the next one 6 months from now instead of doing
really
it
nice
on the standard like fantasy writer deadline of like I don't
years.
know, 13 years. How long has it been since George R. R. Martin wrote a book? Like a lot of years.
Well, it's like usually the first couple of books, it'll be like every other year. And then like the time between the penultimate book and the final book is going to easily be 20 years.
So about 12 months ago when we were talking about this series, when we first started talking about this book together.
I know, I'm so sorry.
No, I'm just joking. We needed to cover what we needed to cover.
Yeah.
So I got to this cliffhanger.
Yeah.
And I was like, what a cool cliffhanger for a 2-book series.
Right?
We've all been punked.
Yeah, we've
It's going to be 5.
Amazon is a liar.
She says it's going to be 5. Like, there's another thing a fantasy author does, which is start saying they're going to write a trilogy and then write 12 books.
Yeah, I guess it's going to be a 5-book series. Who the hell knows? I'm a little mad about it, but also very intrigued. Oh, no.
It was a good read. There's that whole website about whether or not reads are good. It was a good read.
Yeah. Yes, it was a good read.
That is
there
what
we
that
go.
site's for.
Okay, perfect. Andrew, did you talk about why you think this one worked, whereas other ones have not worked in the past?
I read this book called Cast in Shadow by Michelle Segarra for Overdue, and I hated it, like actively hated it more than I think I hated any book that I've read for the show in a long time.
Wow.
And a lot of it was because it was doing all this like fantasy, like name droppy, world buildy stuff, but it was doing it just like so badly. And like the character relationships were so muddy all the time. And it was doing a thing where it's like, if somebody is always like throwing a knife at somebody, then the action must be exciting. Like I must be doing a fun fantasy action book.
Yeah.
The reason why I think this book succeeds, one is just that like all like we said, all the like basic stuff that she sets out to do, she does competently. Like action sequences, romance stuff, like it all hits the way it's supposed to. But like even when you're learning about all this wild like dragon magic stuff, I think she does a good job of keeping the stakes like pretty narrow and like character focused, and the things the characters are worried about are like knowable to regular humans like you and me who don't have magic dragons to worry about. Like she keeps the spotlight on like relatable stuff, and it keeps the book grounded even as it's doing all this weird like time stoppy dragon bondy
telepathic stuff,
wyvern, like all the wild stuff that it throws at you. Like it keeps it grounded, and I appreciated that.
I really loved book. I don't know, man.
I did too.
It did all the things I wanted it to do, and probably stuff I didn't even know I wanted.
And it's probably not the first book that has used like people aren't telling you everything as a way to not have to lore dump super early. Like plenty of stories do that. It just really worked. I just found it this version of it worked for me because like there was enough. I also like that she did not know what Dragon School was. Like that's enough. She wasn't like fish out of water. I've never heard of this school before. And so she had a working knowledge of what the expectations of her were, which lends a lot of great context for like how she's working around it, or why it's annoying that Dane is the way that he is, or why it's a relief that Xaden is the way that he is, you know. That all worked really well together.
Yeah, and then the other book that we read recently that I'm comparing this to mentally, because this book did start with a praise from Book Talk like page, was we read Colleen Hoover for the show, like within the last couple of weeks, and Craig thought he liked it, but then by the time we got to the end of an hour and a half of talking about it, realized that he did not actually like it, which is the correct response.
I fell off that dragon. It was
good to read one that like the TikTok was like flipping out about, that like lived up to the hype, I guess. Like maybe I just like this book a lot because I went in with like relatively low expectations of like, this is the thing that Book Talk loves, and this is a sort of a fantasy book written to satisfy a certain demographic. And I've had bad times with those books before, but
One of my favorite things that Sabrina says is that a lot of times she'll go into a book with
a wary mind, but an open heart.
That's the one. There we go.
There you go.
Yeah. Which means that when it's shockingly good, I'm like, wow, huzzah,
that's a nice surprise.
Delightful. But then it means that like if it's shockingly bad, I'm like, the bar was so low, buddy.
It's so true. Oh my gosh. Thank you for coming and celebrating our 300th episode with us.
Congratulations
I love
on
y'all
300.
so much.
Congrats.
I know I made a joke earlier, but that is a big deal. It's a big deal to do it.
It is a big deal.
Thank you. I agree. Oh my gosh. Okay, where can they find you on the internets?
Craig, hit it.
Overdue Pod is the handle we use on social media, and overduepodcast.com is our website. I don't know if you just want to send us an email. We have an email. It's just overduepod@gmail.com. You can tell us about other books we should read because we liked this one. That's always helpful.
And we also have a patreon.com/overduepod is our Patreon page. We either have started or are about to start, depending on when this goes up, a long read about Emily Wilson's translation of the Iliad, which I am super excited to do. We did her Odyssey a few years ago and had a really great time with it. She's super cool.
So good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
That sounds
amazing.
All right, cool.
Yeah. All right, perfect. Well, keep being a badass and love yourself as much as you love
destroying armoires with your orgasms.
With your sex lightning.
Yeah. Lightning orgasms. That's the one.
I was gonna say your unintentional dragon polycule, but that works too.
Incredible.
Heaving Bosoms is produced by us, Melody Carlisle and Sabrina Bradley. Editing is done by Melody Carlisle.
Our theme music is by the incredible singer-songwriter Brittany Fonts, and our art is by ultra-talented author Kate Pryor. If you like our show, remember to follow us on your favorite podcast app, rate us 5 stars, leave a nice review, and of course, tell all your friends about us, even if they don't read romance.
If you want to get in touch, you can email us at heavingbosomspodcast@gmail.com. If you want more of us, visit patreon.com/heavingbosomspodcast. You can also find us on Instagram @heavingbosoms, on TikTok @heaving_bosoms, and in our Facebook group, the Heaving Bosoms Geriatric Friendship Cult.
Head over to our website to sign up for our newsletter, get our Reading Embrace printable, and check out my audiobooks at heavingbosoms.com. All right, we'll be back next week with more swoons and snark. See you then.